My name's Clara, and I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who eavesdrops on her husband's phone calls. But here I am, pressed against the kitchen door, my heart pounding as I strain to catch every word. She's clueless, Lydia. Absolutely clueless. Jack's voice drifts through the crack, dripping with disdain. Clara's so caught up in her little homemaker routine, she wouldn't notice if I danced naked in front of her with a neon sign. I clamp a hand over my mouth to stifle a gasp. Lydia. That's the name of his new assistant, the one he's been working late nights with for the past few months. And what about Anna? A woman's voice, silky and amused. Doesn't she notice Daddy's absence? Jack's laugh is cold, unfamiliar. Please. The kid's 7. As long as I bring her a new toy every week, she's happy. Clara does all the heavy lifting anyway. My fingers dig into the doorframe, splinters pricking my skin. How dare he? How dare he speak about our daughter like that? You know, Jack continues, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. Sometimes I wonder why I even bother coming home. It's all so mundane, predictable. But you, Lydia? You're anything but predictable. Flatterer, Lydia purrs. So, when are you going to leave her? The silence that follows is deafening. I lean in closer, my ear practically pressed against the door. Soon, Jack finally says. I just need to figure out how to do it without losing everything. You know how these things go. She'd take me for all I'm worth. I stumble back from the door, my legs suddenly weak. The kitchen spins around me, familiar surfaces blurring into a nauseating whirl of color. I grab the counter to steady myself, knocking over a vase of fresh-cut flowers. They scatter across the floor, petals crushed beneath my feet. Clara? Jack calls out, his voice sharp with alarm. Is that you? I freeze, panic rising in my throat. What do I do? Confront him now? Pretend I didn't hear? Before I can decide, the kitchen door swings open. Jack stands there, phone still in hand, his face a mask of practiced concern. Honey, are you all right? I heard a crash. I look up at him, this stranger wearing my husband's face. 15 years of marriage, and I've never seen him so clearly. I'm fine, I managed to choke out. Just clumsy. Knocked over the flowers. Jack's shoulders relax, relief evident in his eyes. He thinks I don't know. He thinks I'm still his clueless, predictable Clara. Let me help you clean that up, he says, already reaching for the broom. No, the word comes out sharper than I intended. I force a smile, softening my tone. No, it's okay. I've got it. Weren't you on a call? Jack hesitates, his eyes searching my face. For a moment, I'm terrified he'll see right through me, see the rage and betrayal boiling just beneath the surface. But he doesn't. Of course he doesn't. I'm just his mundane, predictable wife, after all. Right, he says, backing out of the kitchen. I should get back to that. Important client. As the door swings shut behind him, I sink to the floor amidst the scattered flowers. Tears blur my vision, but I blink them away furiously. This isn't the time for crying. This is the time for action. I pick up a crushed rose, its deep red petals stained darker, where my tears have fallen. As I stare at it, something hardens inside me. A resolve, cold and unyielding as steel. Jack thinks I'm clueless? Predictable? Well, he's about to learn just how wrong he is. I may be a homemaker, but I'm also a mother. And there's nothing more dangerous than a mother protecting her child. I stand up, brushing dirt from my knees. It's time to show Jack exactly what his mundane, predictable wife is capable of. Let the games begin. I sit at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee growing cold between my hands as I stare at our wedding photo. Jack's arm is around my waist, his smile genuine and warm. Where did that man go? Mommy, look what I drew. Anna's voice breaks through my reverie. She bounds into the kitchen, a colorful drawing clutched in her small hands. I force a smile, pushing aside my dark thoughts. Let's see, sweetheart. Anna proudly displays her artwork, a stick figure family holding hands. That's you, me, and Daddy, she explains, pointing to each figure. My heart clenches. If only she knew the truth. It's beautiful, Anna. I manage, pulling her into a hug. Why don't you go hang it on the fridge? As she skips away, I'm hit by a wave of memories. Jack and I on our honeymoon, laughing as we got caught in a sudden rainstorm. The day we brought Anna home from the hospital, Jack's eyes filled with tears of joy. When did it all start to change? I think back to the subtle shifts I'd ignored. The late nights at the office that became more frequent. The way his eyes would dart to his phone whenever it buzzed. The gradual emotional distance that I'd chalked up to work stress. God, I'd been so blind. The front door opens and Jack's voice calls out, "I'm home." Anna squeals with delight, running to greet him. I stay seated, steeling myself. Jack enters the kitchen, Anna perched on his hip. He sets her down and moves to kiss me, but I turn my head at the last second, his lips grazing my cheek instead. He frowns. "Everything okay?" I nod, not trusting myself to speak. Jack's frown deepens, but he doesn't push it. "Daddy, want to see my drawing?" Anna tugs at his sleeve. "Sure, princess," he says, following her to the fridge. I watch them, anger bubbling up inside me. How can he stand there, playing the doting father, when just yesterday he dismissed Anna as easily placated by toys? "It's great, sweetie," Jack says, ruffling Anna's hair. "Hey, why don't you go play in your room for a bit? I need to talk to Mommy." My pulse quickens as Anna leaves. Jack turns to me, concern etched on his face. "Clara, what's going on? You've been acting strange all day." I meet his gaze, searching for any trace of the man I married. Have I? I hadn't noticed. I guess I've just been distracted. Jack sits across from me, reaching for my hand. I pull away. "Talk to me," he pleads. "Whatever it is, we can work it out." For a moment, I'm tempted to confront him right then and there. But no, I need more. I need irrefutable proof. "It's nothing," I lie, standing up. "I'm just tired. I think I'll lie down for a bit." As I leave the kitchen, I hear Jack sigh heavily. Good. Let him worry. In our bedroom, I close the door and lean against it, my resolve strengthening. I won't let him gaslight me. I won't let him make me doubt what I heard. I move to my closet, pushing aside hangers until I reach the back. There, hidden behind old shoeboxes, is a small safe. I'd bought it years ago to store important documents. Now it would serve a new purpose. I open it and place my phone inside, the recording of Jack's conversations safely stored on it. This is just the beginning, I think, as I close the safe. Jack may think he's clever, but he has no idea who he's dealing with. I'm not just a wife or a mother. I'm a woman scorned, and I will not rest until I've uncovered every last bit of his deception. As I hear Anna's laughter floating up from downstairs, my determination solidifies. I'll protect her, no matter what it takes. And in the process, I'll reclaim the life and dignity Jack thought he could steal from me. Let the hunt begin. The next morning, I wake before dawn, my mind already racing with plans. While Jack sleeps, oblivious, I slip out of bed and head to his office. I pause at Anna's room, peeking in to see her peaceful face. For her, I remind myself, this is all for her. In Jack's office, I boot up his computer. My hands shake as I type in his password, Anna's birthday. At least he remembered that. I start digging through his emails, looking for any correspondence with Lydia. Nothing obvious jumps out, but I notice a pattern of deleted messages. Clever, Jack. But not clever enough. I pull out a USB drive and start copying his entire email archive. As the files transfer, I rifle through his desk drawers. In the bottom one, I find a stack of credit card statements. Bingo! I scan through the charges, my stomach churning as I spot several expensive restaurant bills and hotel charges. All on days Jack claimed to be working late. The computer chimes, signaling the file transfer is complete. I quickly shut everything down, leaving no trace of my investigation. Back in our bedroom, Jack is still snoring softly. I slip the USB drive and credit card statements into my safe, then crawl back into bed, my skin crawling at his proximity. Hours later, I'm in the kitchen making pancakes when Anna bounces in. "Mommy, can we go to the park today?" she asks, her eyes bright with hope. I smile, grateful for the distraction. Of course, sweetie. Let's have breakfast first. As we eat, Jack stumbles in, looking hungover. Morning, he grunts, reaching for the coffee. Daddy, we're going to the park. Anna exclaims. Jack winces at her volume. That's nice, princess. I've got to head to the office, though. Big project due. Anna's face falls. But it's Saturday. I know, I'm sorry. Next time, okay? He kisses the top of her head and heads for the door, not even glancing at me. As soon as he's gone, I turn to Anna. Hey, how about we make it a special day? Park, ice cream, and maybe even a movie? Her eyes light up. Really? You're the best, Mommy. At the park, I watch Anna play, my heart swelling with love. How could Jack miss this? How could he choose anything over our daughter's laughter? Clara? Is that you? I turn to see Sarah, an old friend from college. We exchange hugs and catch up, her eyes widening as I mention Jack's frequent absences. Clara, she says hesitantly, I don't want to overstep, but I saw Jack last week at a restaurant downtown. He was with a woman and they looked close. My breath catches. Blonde? Tall? Sarah nods, looking worried. Clara, is everything okay? I force a smile. Everything's fine. Thanks for telling me, Sarah. As she walks away, I clench my fists, anger boiling inside me. Another piece of evidence, another nail in Jack's coffin. That night, after tucking Anna in, I sit at the kitchen table, surrounded by printouts of emails and credit card statements. I've created a timeline of Jack's betrayal, each lie and secret rendezvous meticulously documented. My phone buzzes, a text from Jack. Working late again. Don't wait up. I laugh bitterly. Of course he is. I pick up my phone, hesitating for a moment before dialing a number. Hello, a gruff voice answers. Mr. Daniels? This is Clara Thompson. I'd like to hire your services as a private investigator. There's a pause. What exactly are you looking to investigate, Mrs. Thompson? I take a deep breath. I need evidence of my husband's affair. As I hang up, I feel a strange mix of sadness and determination. This is it, the point of no return. But as I glance at Anna's latest drawing on the fridge, I know I'm doing the right thing. Jack thinks he's won, that he's outsmarted me. But he has no idea what's coming. I may be just a homemaker, but I'm about to become his worst nightmare. I've become a master of deception, living a double life that would make Jack proud if he knew. By day, I'm the perfect wife and mother. By night, I'm a relentless investigator, piecing together the shattered remains of my marriage. It's a Tuesday evening when fate hands me an unexpected gift. Jack's in his study, door ajar, engrossed in another important phone call. I'm walking past with a basket of laundry when I hear Lydia's name. My heart races as I set down the basket and pull out my phone, hitting record. I lean against the wall, straining to catch every word. Lydia, baby, you know I can't tonight. Jack's voice oozes with false regret. Clara's been suspicious lately. I need to play the dutiful husband for a while. I clench my fists, willing myself to stay silent. Of course I miss you, he continues. God, the things I want to do to you right now. I squeeze my eyes shut, fighting back nausea. Clara? Please, Jack scoffs. She's clueless. Probably thinks I'm on a business call right now. Sometimes I wonder if she even has a brain in that pretty little head of hers. White-hot rage courses through me. I want to burst in, to confront him, to make him eat those words. But I hold back. This is too valuable. Look, I promise I'll make it up to you this weekend, Jack says. I'll tell Clara I have a conference. We'll have the whole weekend to ourselves. Just you and me, baby. I've heard enough. I stop the recording and retreat to our bedroom, my mind reeling. Once inside, I play back the conversation, each word a dagger to my heart. But beneath the pain, a cold determination takes root. This is it, the smoking gun I've been waiting for. I save the recording to my secret email account and delete it from my phone. Then I head downstairs, plastering on a smile, as I hear Jack emerge from his study. Hey, honey, he says, wrapping his arms around me from behind. Sorry about that call. Work's been crazy lately. I turn in his embrace, meeting his eyes. No problem. I understand. Jack smiles, relief evident on his face. You're the best, you know that? I don't know what I'd do without you. I force a laugh. Probably starve. Speaking of which, dinner's almost ready. Can you get Anna? As Jack heads upstairs, I return to the stove, my mind racing. I now have irrefutable proof of his affair and his contempt for me. The question is, what do I do with it? Over dinner, I watch Jack interact with Anna, noting the genuine affection in his eyes. It's the one thing I can't reconcile. How can he love her so much and yet be willing to tear apart her family? Daddy, can we go to the zoo this weekend? Anna asks, her eyes shining with hope. Jack hesitates, glancing at me. I'm sorry, princess. I have a conference this weekend. But maybe next week, okay? Anna's face falls, and I feel a surge of protective anger. Actually, I interject. Why don't Anna and I go to the zoo ourselves? We could make it a girls' day out. Anna's excitement is palpable, and even Jack looks relieved. That's a great idea, he says. You two have fun. Later that night, as Jack snores beside me, I lie awake, formulating my plan. I can't confront him yet, I need more. I need to know exactly where he'll be this weekend, who he'll be with, what he'll be doing. I reach for my phone, pulling up the contact for Mr. Daniels, the private investigator. I have new information, I text. I need surveillance this weekend. Every detail, every moment. The response comes quickly. Understood. I'll take care of it. I set down the phone, a grim smile on my face. Jack thinks he's so clever, juggling his two lives. But his house of cards is about to come crashing down, and I'll be there to watch it burn. The weekend arrives, and with it, a storm of conflicting emotions. As I help Jack pack for his conference, my fingers tremble with barely contained rage. Every lie he tells, every casual kiss on my cheek, feels like a mockery of our vows. I'll miss you both, Jack says, hugging Anna tightly. Have fun at the zoo, princess. I watch them, my heart breaking for Anna. She doesn't deserve this deception. As Jack's car disappears down the driveway, I spring into action. Ready for our adventure, sweetie? I ask Anna, forcing cheer into my voice. At the zoo, I'm torn between genuine joy at Anna's excitement and the constant buzz of my phone. Mr. Daniels sends updates throughout the day, each one a dagger to my heart. Subject checked into Rosewood Hotel, room 412. Subject met blonde woman in hotel bar. Proceeding to room. I clench my jaw, focusing on Anna's delight at the elephants. She deserves this day of innocence before her world shatters. That evening, after tucking Anna in, I meet Mr. Daniels in a quiet cafe. He slides a manila envelope across the table. It's all there, Mrs. Thompson. Photos, video, audio recordings. Are you sure you want to see this? I nod, my throat tight. I need to know everything. At home, I spread the contents of the envelope across the kitchen table. Photos of Jack and Lydia entering the hotel, intimate moments captured through windows, transcripts of their conversations. It's all so clinical, yet each piece of evidence feels like a physical blow. One photo catches my eye, Jack and Lydia at dinner, his hand caressing hers. The look in his eyes. It's how he used to look at me. Tears blur my vision, but I blink them away. No more crying. No more weakness. I stay up all night, meticulously organizing the evidence. By dawn, I have a comprehensive timeline of Jack's betrayal, from the first suspicious late night to this damning weekend tryst. Sunday evening, Jack returns home, all smiles and false cheer. How is the zoo? He asks, kissing Anna's forehead. It was awesome, Anna exclaims. We saw lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, Jack chuckles, and for a moment, I see a flicker of the man I married. How was your conference, dear? I ask, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Jack launches into a detailed account of fictional seminars and networking events. I listen, marveling at his ability to lie so effortlessly. That night, as Jack sleeps beside me, blissfully unaware of the storm about to break, I make my final decision. I can't let this continue. I can't let Anna grow up in a house built on lies. Monday morning, I wait until Jack leaves for work and Anna's at school. Then I call my lawyer. Sandra, it's Clara Thompson. I need to file for divorce. There's a pause on the other end. Clara, are you sure? This is a big step. I'm sure, I reply, my voice stronger than I feel. I have evidence of infidelity. Substantial evidence. We spend the next hour discussing logistics, custody arrangements, division of assets, the legal process ahead. By the time we hang up, I feel both drained and oddly empowered. I spend the rest of the day in a daze, going through the motions of my usual routine. As I fold laundry and prepare dinner, I'm acutely aware that these mundane tasks represent the last vestiges of my life as Jack's wife. When I pick up Anna from school, her innocent chatter about her day feels like a lifeline to normalcy. I hug her tightly, knowing that soon I'll have to shatter her world to save her from a greater hurt. As we pull into the driveway, I see Jack's car already there. Unusual for him to be home this early. My heart races as I realize this is it. The moment of truth has arrived sooner than I expected. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation to come. It's time to reclaim my life, my dignity, and my future. For myself and for Anna. No more lies. No more deception. It ends today. As I pull into the driveway, my heart hammers against my ribs. Jack's car is there, hours earlier than usual. Anna chatters excitedly in the back seat, oblivious to the tension radiating from me. Daddy's home early, she squeals, unbuckling her seatbelt before I can even park. I force a smile. Honey, wait for me before you go inside, okay? We enter the house, and Jack emerges from the kitchen, a strange expression on his face. Hey, you too, he says, his voice oddly strained. Anna, why don't you go play in your room for a bit? I need to talk to Mommy. Anna looks between us, sensing the tension. But Daddy, you're never home this early. Can't we play together? Jack's face softens. Soon, Princess. I promise. Just give Mommy and me a few minutes, okay? As Anna reluctantly heads upstairs, I steel myself. This is it. The moment I've been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Jack turns to me, his face a mask of guilt and fear. Clara, we need to talk. I laugh bitterly. Oh, now you want to talk. After months of lies and deception. His eyes widen. What are you, Dash? Save it, Jack. I cut him off, my voice ice cold. I know everything. About Lydia, about your conferences, about how you really feel about me and our marriage. Jack pales, stumbling back as if I'd physically struck him. Clara, I can explain, Dash. Explain what? I spit, my carefully contained rage finally boiling over. Explain how you've been lying to my face for months? How you've been sneaking around with your assistant while I've been here, taking care of our daughter, believing in our marriage? It's not what you think, Jack pleads, reaching for me. I recoil from his touch. Don't you dare, I hiss. I heard you, Jack. I heard how you talk about me when you think I can't hear. Clueless Clara, right? Well, guess what? I'm not as clueless as you thought. I pull out my phone, playing the recording of his conversation with Lydia. Jack's face crumples as he hears his own voice, dripping with contempt for me and lust for her. How could you? I whisper, tears finally breaking through my anger. How could you do this to us? To Anna? Jack sinks into a chair, head in his hands. I'm sorry, he mumbles. I never meant for this to happen. It just did. Things don't just happen, Jack, I say, my voice steadier now. You made choices. Choices that destroyed our family. A small voice from the stairs makes us both freeze. Mommy? Daddy? Why are you fighting? We turn to see Anna, tears streaming down her face. My heart shatters all over again. Oh, sweetie, I say, moving towards her. But she backs away. Is Daddy leaving? She asks, her lower lip trembling. Like Samantha's daddy did? Jack stands, reaching for her. No, Princess, I'm not Dash. Don't lie to her. I interrupt, my voice sharp. Not anymore. Anna looks between us, confusion and fear in her eyes. I want us to be together, she says, her voice small and broken. Can't we just be happy? In that moment, seeing the pain in my daughter's eyes, something inside me solidifies. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about Anna and the example I set for her. I kneel down, meeting Anna's gaze. Sweetie, sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. Big mistakes that hurt the people they love. And sometimes the best thing to do is to start over. But I don't want to start over, Anna sobs. I want things to stay the same. I pull her into a hug, feeling her small body shake with sobs. Over her head, I meet Jack's gaze. The guilt and regret in his eyes do nothing to soften my resolve. We can't stay the same, Anna, I say softly. But I promise you, no matter what happens, Mommy and Daddy both love you very much. That will never change. As I hold my crying daughter, with my soon-to-be ex-husband standing helplessly by, I know that the real battle is just beginning. But for Anna's sake, for my own sake, I'm ready to fight. No more lies. No more pretending. It's time for the truth, no matter how much it hurts. The next morning, I wake up on the couch, my eyes puffy from a night of intermittent tears and fitful sleep. Jack had retreated to the guest room, leaving me to comfort Anna until she finally drifted off. I make my way to the kitchen, where I find Jack nursing a cup of coffee. His eyes are bloodshot, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. For a moment, I almost feel sorry for him. Almost. We need to talk, I say, my voice hoarse but steady. Jack nods, unable to meet my gaze. Clara, I dash. I hold up a hand, silencing him. No, Jack. You've done enough talking. Now it's my turn. I pull out a thick folder from my bag, the evidence I've collected over the past weeks. Photos, credit card statements, hotel receipts, and transcripts of recorded conversations spread across the kitchen table. Jack's face pales as he takes it all in. You hired a private investigator, he whispers, disbelief etched on his face. I did what I had to do, I reply coldly, to protect myself and our daughter from your lies. I play the recordings, his disdainful comments about me, his passionate declarations to Lydia. With each revelation, Jack seems to shrink in his chair. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I continue, my voice gaining strength. I'm filing for divorce. Jack's head snaps up. Divorce? Clara, please, we can work this out. I'll end things with Lydia. I'll go to counseling, anything you want. I laugh, a harsh, bitter sound. Anything I want? I wanted a faithful husband. I wanted a father who put his family first. I wanted the man I married, not this stranger sitting in front of me. Think about Anna, Jack pleads. She needs both her parents. I am thinking about Anna, I snap. I'm thinking about the example I want to set for her. I want her to know that she should never settle for being someone's second choice, that she deserves respect and honesty in her relationships. Jack reaches across the table, trying to take my hand. I pull away. Clara, I love you. I love our family. This thing with Lydia, it was a mistake. A stupid, terrible mistake. For a moment, I waver. Part of me wants to believe him, wants to cling to the remnants of our life together. But then I remember the contempt in his voice when he spoke about me to Lydia, the casual cruelty of his betrayal. No, Jack, I say, my voice firm. Love doesn't treat someone like this. Love doesn't lie and cheat and belittle. What you feel isn't love, it's ownership. You thought you could have it all. The devoted wife at home, the exciting mistress on the side. Well, not anymore. I stand up, gathering the evidence back into the folder. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. I think it's best if you move out today. Jack's face crumples. Where am I supposed to go? I'm sure Lydia would be happy to take you in, I reply, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. After all, you two have so much in common, like a complete lack of moral compass. As if on cue, Anna's voice calls from upstairs. Mommy? Daddy? Jack moves to stand, but I stop him with a look. I'll go. You start packing. I find Anna in her room, clutching her favorite stuffed animal. Is Daddy leaving? she asks, her lower lip trembling. I sit beside her on the bed, pulling her close. Yes, sweetie. Daddy's going to be living somewhere else for a while. Because of the fighting? I nod, struggling to find the right words. Sometimes, when grown-ups hurt each other very badly, they need to live apart to heal. Anna buries her face in my shoulder. Will Daddy still love me? My heart breaks all over again. Of course he will, baby. Daddy and I both love you very, very much. That will never change. As I hold my daughter, listening to the sounds of Jack packing downstairs, I feel a strange mix of grief and relief. The life I thought I had is over, shattered by betrayal and lies. But from the ashes of that life, I'm determined to build something new, something honest, something strong. For Anna, for myself, for the future we both deserve. 6 months have passed since Jack moved out, and the world hasn't ended. In fact, it's slowly but surely getting better. I stand in my kitchen, sipping coffee and watching Anna play in the backyard. She's laughing, chasing butterflies with a net I bought her last week. The sound of her joy is a balm to my soul. The divorce proceedings were messy, as expected. Jack fought tooth and nail to maintain his image, but in the end, the evidence was overwhelming. His company pushed him out to avoid scandal, and most of our friends sided with me once the truth came to light. I won primary custody of Anna, with Jack getting every other weekend. It's been an adjustment for all of us, but Anna's resilience never ceases to amaze me. The doorbell rings, pulling me from my thoughts. I open it to find Sarah, my college friend who first tipped me off about Jack's affair. "Ready for our volunteer shift?" she asks, smiling warmly. I nod, grabbing my purse. "Anna," I call. "Time to go, sweetie." The local women's shelter has become my sanctuary these past months. Helping other women rebuild their lives has been instrumental in rebuilding my own. Today, Anna's coming with us to help sort donations. As we drive, I catch Anna's eye in the rearview mirror. "Excited to help out today?" She nods enthusiastically. "Yeah. Miss Judy said I could help organize the toy donations this time." My heart swells with pride. Despite everything, Anna's kindness and empathy have only grown stronger. At the shelter, we're greeted by familiar faces. Women I've come to know and respect, each with their own story of survival. As we sort through clothes and toiletries, I overhear Anna chatting with another little girl, sharing her own experience of divorce with gentle wisdom beyond her years. "It's okay to be sad," Anna says softly. "But remember, it's not your fault. And your mom loves you so much." Tears prick my eyes, and I have to turn away for a moment to compose myself. Later that evening, after tucking Anna into bed, I sit on the porch with a glass of wine. The night is peaceful, stars twinkling overhead. For the first time in a long time, I feel truly at peace. My phone buzzes, a text from Jack. "Anna left her favorite stuffed animal at my place. Can I drop it off tomorrow?" I type back a quick affirmative, no longer feeling the sting of anger or betrayal at his name. It's been replaced by a calm indifference, tinged with pity for the life he threw away. As I sit there, I reflect on the journey of the past year. The pain, the anger, the fear, it all seems so distant now. In its place is a strength I never knew I possessed, a resilience forged in the fires of adversity. I think about the women at the shelter, about Anna, about myself. We're all survivors, in our own ways. And while the road hasn't been easy, I wouldn't change a thing, because this journey has led me here, to a place of self-respect, of purpose, of genuine happiness. Tomorrow, I have a job interview at a local nonprofit. It's a far cry from my life as a homemaker, but I'm excited about the prospect of a new challenge. Anna's thriving in school, making new friends, and excelling in her studies. We're building a new life, brick by brick, day by day. As I finish my wine and head inside, I catch sight of my reflection in the window. The woman staring back at me is stronger, wiser, and more alive than she's ever been. She's a survivor, a fighter, a mother. She's me, and for the first time in a long time, I'm proud of who I see. I close the door behind me, ready to face whatever tomorrow brings. Because I know now, without a doubt, that I can handle anything life throws my way. After all, I'm Clara Thompson, and I'm nobody's second choice.
The pencil snapped between my fingers, and I stared at the broken halves, my frustration mirroring the splintered wood. I tossed them onto my cluttered desk and leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples. The clock on the wall ticked relentlessly, reminding me of the looming deadline. "Helena!" Ethan's voice boomed from downstairs. "Where are you? Dinner's getting cold." I sighed, glancing at my unfinished storyboard. "Coming!" I called back, reluctantly pushing away from my desk. As I descended the stairs, the aroma of garlic and herbs wafted up, making my stomach growl. Ethan stood at the bottom, arms crossed, his expression a mix of annoyance and concern. "You've been up there for hours," he said, his tone clipped. "I thought we agreed you'd take a break tonight." I forced a smile. "I'm sorry, I lost track of time. The publisher wants to see progress on the new storyline, and The publisher this, the deadline that," Ethan interrupted, throwing his hands up. "When was the last time we had a proper conversation that didn't revolve around your work?" The word stung, but I bit back a retort. "Let's just have dinner, okay? I'm starving." We sat at the table, the silence between us thick and uncomfortable. I picked at my food, my appetite suddenly gone. "So," Ethan said, breaking the silence, "any plans to rejoin the land of the living anytime soon?" I set my fork down with a clatter. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm tired of being married to a ghost," he snapped. "You're either locked away in your office or zoned out thinking about your next project. We haven't been on a date in months, Helena." "I'm working towards something important," I defended. "This contract could change everything for us." Ethan's laugh was bitter. "Us? There is no us anymore. It's just you and your precious graphic novels." The words hit me like a slap. I pushed back from the table, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "That's not fair, and you know it." "Isn't it?" Ethan challenged, rising to his feet. "When was the last time you did anything around the house? The laundry's piling up, the fridge is empty, and I can't remember the last time we had sex." I felt my cheeks burn with anger and embarrassment. "I didn't realize I was supposed to be your maid and your personal porn star." Ethan's eyes widened, then narrowed. "That's not what I meant, and you know it. I just want my wife back." "I'm right here," I shouted, gesturing wildly. "I'm sorry if my career is inconvenient for you, but I'm not going to apologize for pursuing my dreams." "Your dreams," Ethan repeated, his voice low and dangerous. "What about our dreams, Helena? What about the family we talked about, the life we planned together?" I felt the fight drain out of me, replaced by a deep, aching sadness. "People change, Ethan. Dreams change." "Yeah," he said, turning away. "I'm starting to see that." As he walked out of the room, my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at the screen and saw a message from my publisher. "Contract's ready. Meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. to sign. This is your big break, Helena." I stared at the message, my heart pounding with excitement and dread. This was everything I'd worked for, but at what cost? The sound of the front door slamming jolted me from my thoughts. I rushed to the window, watching Ethan's car peel out of the driveway and disappear down the street. As I stood there, alone in the quiet house, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the edge of a precipice, about to take a leap that would change everything. I arrived at the publishing house the next morning, my nerves jangling like loose change in a pocket. The contract signing went smoothly, but as I left the building, my elation was tempered by the memory of Ethan's angry departure the night before. My phone buzzed. Ethan's name flashed on the screen, but I hesitated before answering. "Hello? Where are you?" His voice was cold, controlled. "I just finished the meeting with my publisher. I signed the contract." A long pause. "So you went ahead with it, without even discussing it with me?" "Ethan, we've talked about this for months. It's not like it's a surprise." "No, what's a surprise is coming home to find the house a mess and my wife gone." I felt a flash of anger. "I'm not your maid, Ethan. I have a career." "A career," he scoffed. "Is that what you call neglecting everything else in your life?" "That's not fair. You know what's not fair? Coming home to an empty fridge and a pile of laundry. Maybe, if you spent half as much time on our home as you do on your little drawings, we wouldn't be having this conversation." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, tears pricking my eyes. "Helena? Is everything okay?" I turned to see Elijah, my old school friend, standing behind me. His concerned face was a welcome sight. "Elijah, what are you doing here?" He grinned. "I work just down the street. Saw you coming out looking like you'd seen a ghost. Want to grab a coffee?" At the cafe, I poured out my troubles to Elijah. He listened intently, his brow furrowed. "Helena, you can't let Ethan make you feel guilty for pursuing your dreams," he said finally. "Your talent is a gift. Don't let anyone dim your light." I smiled weakly. "Thanks, Elijah. It's just, I feel like I'm losing him, like I have to choose between my marriage and my career." Elijah leaned forward. "A real partner would support your ambitions, not resent them. Have you considered that maybe Ethan's the one who needs to change, not you?" His words struck a chord, but before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. A text from Ethan. "We need to talk. Be home by 6. I said goodbye to Elijah and headed home, my stomach in knots. When I arrived, Ethan was waiting in the living room, his face like thunder. "I've been thinking," he began without preamble. "This isn't working. Something has to change." "I agree," I said cautiously. "We need to find a better balance." "No," he cut me off. "You need to decide what's more important, your little hobby or our marriage." I felt like I'd been slapped. "My little hobby is my career, Ethan. It's part of who I am." "And what about who we are?" he demanded. "What about the life we planned, the family we talked about?" "Plans change, Ethan. People grow." His laugh was bitter. "Grow apart, you mean? That's not what I'm done competing with your drawings for your attention," he interrupted. "Either you start acting like a proper wife, or—" He left the threat hanging, but its implication was clear. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Or what?" I whispered. Ethan's eyes were cold. "Or maybe it's time we both reconsider this marriage." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and final. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. In that moment, I realized we were standing on the edge of a precipice, and the ground beneath us was crumbling fast. As I looked at Ethan, the man I had loved for so long, I couldn't help but wonder. Was this the beginning of the end, or just the end of the beginning? The days following Ethan's ultimatum were a blur of tension and unspoken accusations. We danced around each other like wary boxers, neither willing to throw the first punch. I buried myself in my work, using my art as a shield against the growing chasm between us. One evening, as I searched for a misplaced sketch in Ethan's home office, I stumbled upon something that made my blood run cold. Tucked away in his desk drawer was a stack of credit card bills, hidden beneath a pile of mundane paperwork. My hands trembled as I pulled them out, my eyes widening at the charges for luxury hotels I'd never heard of. "What are you doing?" I whirled around to find Ethan standing in the doorway, his face a mask of anger and... was that fear? "I was looking for a sketch," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I held up the bills. "What are these, Ethan?" He crossed the room in 3 quick strides, snatching the papers from my hand. "Those are private. You had no right to go through my things." "Private?" I echoed, incredulous. "We're married, Ethan. Since when do we keep secrets?" His laugh was harsh, bitter. "That's rich coming from you. You've been keeping plenty of secrets lately, haven't you? Locking yourself away, choosing your work over me." I felt my temper flare. "My work isn't a secret, Ethan. It's my career, my passion. But this," I gestured to the bills he was clutching, "this looks like something else entirely." "You wouldn't understand," he muttered, turning away. "Then help me understand," I pleaded. "What's going on, Ethan? Who were you with at those hotels?" He spun back to face me, his eyes blazing. "Is that what you think? That I'm cheating on you? What am I supposed to think?" I shot back. "You've been distant, angry, and now these bills? Maybe if you paid half as much attention to our marriage as you do to your little comic books, you wouldn't have to ask these questions," he spat. The words stung, but I stood my ground. "Don't turn this around on me. I'm not the one with unexplained hotel stays on my credit card." Ethan's face contorted with rage. He slammed the bills down on the desk, making me flinch. "I don't have to explain myself to you, not when you've made it clear where your priorities lie." "My priorities?" I echoed, disbelieving. "You're the one who gave me an ultimatum, Ethan. You're the one who told me to choose between my career and our marriage." "Because I'm tired of being second best," he roared. "I'm tired of coming home to an empty house, of feeling like a stranger in my own marriage." We stood there, chests heaving, the air between us crackling with tension. In that moment, I saw a stranger standing before me, not the man I'd married. The realization hit me like a physical blow. "Who are you?" I whispered, more to myself than to him. Ethan's face softened for a moment, a flicker of the man I once knew shining through. But then the mask slammed back into place. "I could ask you the same thing," he said coldly. He brushed past me, pausing at the door. "I'm going out. Don't wait up." The front door slammed moments later, leaving me alone in the sudden silence. I sank into Ethan's chair, my mind reeling. The credit card bills lay scattered on the desk, each one a damning piece of evidence. As I sat there, surrounded by the remnants of our shattered trust, a chilling thought crept into my mind. What if I didn't really know Ethan at all? And more terrifyingly, what if I no longer recognized the person I'd become? The questions swirled in my head, unanswered and menacing. One thing was clear. Our marriage was balanced on a knife's edge, and I had a sinking feeling we were about to fall. The days after discovering the hotel bills were a haze of suspicion and doubt. I tried to focus on my work, but my mind kept drifting back to those damning pieces of paper. Ethan's behavior grew increasingly erratic, his mood swinging between cold indifference and explosive anger. One afternoon, I decided to confront him directly. I couldn't live with the uncertainty anymore. I found him in the kitchen, aggressively chopping vegetables for dinner. "Ethan, we need to talk about those bills," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He slammed the knife down, making me jump. "I told you to drop it, Helena. It's none of your business." "None of my business?" I echoed, incredulous. "I'm your wife. If you're—" I couldn't bring myself to say the word cheating. Ethan's laugh was bitter. "Oh, now you remember you're my wife? Funny how that only matters when it suits you." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression changing subtly. "I have to go out," he said abruptly, heading for the door. Something in his tone made me suspicious. "Where are you going?" "Work emergency," he muttered, not meeting my eyes. On impulse, I grabbed my keys. "I'll come with you." Ethan's face paled. "No, it's fine. I won't be long." But I was already following him out the door. He drove erratically, constantly checking his rearview mirror. I stayed a few cars behind, my heart pounding. He pulled into the parking lot of an upscale hotel. I watched, stunned, as a young woman with long blonde hair rushed out to meet him. They embraced, and my world shattered. I sat in my car, trembling, as they disappeared into the hotel. Tears blurred my vision, but I couldn't look away. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, they emerged, laughing and holding hands. As they reached Ethan's car, the woman, Angie, I would later learn, kissed him passionately. It was like a knife to my heart. I don't remember driving home. I was numb, moving on autopilot. When Ethan returned hours later, I was waiting. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He froze, his eyes darting around the room. "Helena, I can explain." "How long?" I repeated, each word sharp as glass. Ethan's shoulders slumped. 6 months. He admitted. The truth hit me like a physical blow. 6 months, half a year of lies, of betrayal. "Why?" I choked out, his face contorted with anger. "Because she makes me feel wanted, Helena. She doesn't disappear into her work for days on end. She's there for me, really there." "So this is my fault?" I asked, incredulous. "You're never here," he shouted. "You're always working, always with your head in the clouds. I needed someone who saw me, who put me first." His words stung, but a part of me recognized the truth in them. Had I really been so absent? "I put you first by supporting us while you chased your dreams," I said quietly. "I put you first by believing in you, even when you didn't believe in yourself." Ethan's face softened for a moment, then hardened again. "It's not enough, Helena. I need more. I need a real wife, not just a roommate who occasionally remembers I exist." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with finality. "What do you want from me, Ethan?" I asked, my voice hollow. His eyes met mine, cold and determined. "I want you to quit, give up this graphic novel nonsense and be the wife I need. Or—" He left the ultimatum unspoken, but I heard it loud and clear. My career or my marriage. My passion or my partner. As I stood there facing the man I thought I knew, I realized I was at a crossroads. The decision I made now would shape the rest of my life. The question was, could I live with either choice? The days following Ethan's ultimatum were a blur of tears and sleepless nights. I threw myself into my work, desperately trying to ignore the gaping wound in my heart. But every time I looked up from my drafting table, The empty house seemed to mock me. One afternoon, I emerged from my studio to find Ethan standing in the living room, his face a mask of barely contained rage. "What is this?" he demanded, gesturing to the pile of laundry on the couch, the dishes in the sink, the layer of dust on every surface. I blinked, disoriented. Had it really been that long since I'd done any housework? "I've been working on a deadline," I started to explain, but Ethan cut me off. "Always with the deadlines," he exploded. "What about your responsibilities here? What about being a wife?" The words stung, but I felt my own anger rising to meet his. "Being a wife doesn't mean being your maid, Ethan, and it certainly doesn't mean giving up my career for your comfort." His eyes narrowed. "So that's your decision then? Your little comic books over our marriage?" "They're not just comic books," I snapped. "They're my passion, my art, and unlike you, they don't demand I give up everything I am to be worthy of them." The moment the words left my mouth, I knew I'd crossed a line. Ethan's face went white, then red with fury. "If that's how you feel," he said, his voice dangerously quiet, "then maybe we don't have anything left to discuss." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. I stood there, shaking, as the silence of the house closed in around me. Hours passed, the sun set, casting long shadows across the cluttered living room. I was about to call Ethan when there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Jean, our elderly neighbor and an old family friend, standing on the porch. "Helena, dear," he said, his kind eyes crinkling with concern. "I saw Ethan tear out of here earlier. Is everything all right?" Before I knew it, I was pouring out the whole sordid story, the fights, the affair, the ultimatum. Jean listened patiently, his weathered face growing more troubled with each revelation. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Helena, I've known you and Ethan since you were newlyweds." "The man you're describing, that's not the Ethan I know." I laughed bitterly. Maybe none of us really knew him. Jean shook his head. "No, that's not what I mean. The Ethan I know would never give you an ultimatum like that. He was always so proud of your talent, your drive." His words made me pause. It was true, Ethan had once been my biggest cheerleader. When had that changed? "Something doesn't add up," Jean continued. "Have you considered that there might be more to this story than you know?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" Jean leaned in, his voice low. "I've seen some strange things lately. Late-night phone calls, mysterious visitors when you're not home. I think there's more going on with Ethan than just an affair." My mind reeled. What was Jean suggesting? That Ethan was involved in something even worse than infidelity? "What should I do?" I whispered, feeling lost and overwhelmed. Jean's eyes met mine, steady and determined. "You need to dig deeper, Helena, for your sake and for Ethan's. There are secrets here that need to come to light." As Jean's words sank in, I felt a shift inside me. The hurt and betrayal were still there, but now they were joined by a fierce determination. If there were secrets to uncover, I would find them. I looked at Jean, my jaw set. "You're right, it's time I got some real answers." As Jean left, I stood in the doorway, watching the night settle over our quiet street. I knew that whatever I discovered next would change everything, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. The truth was out there, and I was going to find it, no matter the cost. Jean's words echoed in my mind as I stood in our bedroom, my hands trembling as I rifled through Ethan's belongings. I felt like a thief in my own home, but I needed answers. The guilt gnawing at me was nothing compared to the desperation clawing at my chest. That's when I found it, a hotel loyalty card I'd never seen before, tucked away in the back of his wallet. My heart raced as I examined it, noting the high-end chain's logo. This was it, the smoking gun I'd been looking for. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and downloaded a GPS tracking app. I hesitated for a moment, my finger hovering over the install button. Was I really going to do this? Invade Ethan's privacy so completely? But then I remembered the lipstick stain I'd found on his collar last week, the hushed phone calls, the way he'd pull away when I tried to touch him. I hit install. The next few days were a blur of anxiety and adrenaline. I played the part of the oblivious wife, all while obsessively checking the app. Ethan's movements became a roadmap of betrayal, frequent stops at unfamiliar addresses, long stays at hotels across town. One evening, as we sat in stony silence at the dinner table, my phone buzzed. Ethan had just checked into the same hotel where I'd first seen him with Angie. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Everything okay?" Ethan asked, his voice laced with false concern. I forced a smile. "Just work stuff, nothing important." He nodded, already losing interest. "I have to go out of town this weekend, business trip." The lie rolled off his tongue so easily it made me sick. "Oh? Where to?" "Just a conference upstate. Boring stuff." I nodded, my mind racing. This was it, my chance to catch him red-handed. The next day I followed him at a distance, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he'd hear it even from his own car. We ended up at a luxurious resort, the kind of place we used to dream about visiting together. I watched from across the parking lot as Angie ran to greet him, throwing her arms around his neck. They kissed passionately, oblivious to the world around them, oblivious to me, watching from the shadows, my world crumbling. Tears blurred my vision as I fumbled for my phone, snapping picture after picture. Each click of the camera felt like another nail in the coffin of our marriage. As they disappeared into the resort, arm in arm, I sat in my car, overwhelmed by the weight of what I'd discovered. It wasn't just an affair, it was a whole other life Ethan had built without me. My phone buzzed again. A text from Elijah. "How are you holding up? Want to grab coffee?" I stared at the message, a lifeline in the storm of my emotions. Elijah had been my rock through all of this, a reminder that not everyone in my life was a liar. But as I was about to reply, another notification popped up. The tracking app. Ethan was on the move again. My finger hovered between Elijah's message and the app. In that moment, I realized I was at a crossroads. I could turn back now, pretend I never saw any of this, and try to salvage what was left of my marriage. Or I could push forward, uncover the full extent of Ethan's betrayal and face the consequences. The choice seemed impossible. My hand shook as I looked from my phone to the resort where my husband was with another woman. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, was a lie. And now I had to decide, did I want the comforting illusion or the painful truth? As the sun set over the resort, casting long shadows across the parking lot, I made my decision. There was no turning back now. Whatever came next, I was ready to face it head-on. With a deep breath, I started my car. It was time to confront Ethan and reclaim my life, whatever the cost. My hands shook as I dialed Ethan's parents. I'd never imagined I'd be making this call, but I needed allies. To my surprise, they believed me instantly. "We've suspected something was wrong for a while," his mother said, her voice tight with anger. "We'll meet you there." The next morning I stood in the resort lobby, flanked by Ethan's parents. My heart raced as we approached the front desk. "We're here to surprise Ethan," I said, forcing a smile. The receptionist, sensing the tension, hesitated before giving us a key card. As we rode the elevator, Ethan's father placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "You're doing the right thing, Helena," he said softly. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. We paused outside the room. I could hear muffled laughter from inside. With a deep breath, I swiped the key card. The door swung open. Ethan and Angie froze mid-embrace, their faces a mask of shock and horror. "Helena?" Ethan gasped, stumbling backward. "Mom? Dad? What are you?" "Save it," I snapped, my voice steadier than I felt. I pulled out my phone, showing him the tracking app. "I know everything, Ethan. The hotels, the lies, all of it." Angie scrambled to gather her things, her face burning with shame. Ethan's parents stood silent, their disappointment palpable. "Helena, please," Ethan begged, reaching for me. "I can explain." I stepped back, my anger rising. "Explain what? How you've been living a double life? How you made me feel like I was crazy for suspecting something was wrong?" "I never meant to hurt you," he stammered. A bitter laugh escaped me. "You gave me an ultimatum, Ethan. My career or our marriage, all while you were sneaking around with her." I gestured to Angie, who flinched, and then Ethan's father stepped forward, his face a storm of anger. "Son, how'd you do this? To Helena? To your family?" "Dad, Ethan started, but his mother cut him off. "We raised you better than this," she said, her voice quivering with disappointment. As the reality of the situation sank in, Ethan's facade crumbled. He sank onto the bed, head in his hands. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." But his words felt hollow. I looked at the man I'd loved, the life we'd built, and felt nothing but a vast, aching emptiness. "I want a divorce," I said, the words ringing with finality. Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes wide with panic. No, Helena, please. We can work this out. I'll do anything. It's too late, I interrupted. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. As I turned to leave, Angie spoke up. Helena, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I held up a hand, silencing her. Save it. You're welcome to him. With that, I walked out of the room, out of the marriage that had defined me for so long. Ethan's parents followed, leaving him alone with the wreckage of his choices. In the elevator, the adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontation began to fade. My knees buckled, and Ethan's mother caught me, pulling me into a fierce hug. You're so brave, she whispered. We're here for you, whatever you need. As we exited the resort, the bright sunlight felt like a spotlight on my pain. But beneath the hurt and betrayal, I felt something else stirring. A sense of freedom, of possibilities I hadn't allowed myself to imagine in years. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my wedding ring on my finger. With trembling hands, I slipped it off, staring at the small circle of gold that had once meant everything. What now? Ethan's father asked gently. I closed my fist around the ring, feeling the metal bite into my palm. Now, I said, my voice growing stronger, I start over, on my own terms. As we drove away from the resort, leaving Ethan and our shattered marriage behind, I felt a strange mix of grief and hope. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, it was mine to choose. The weeks following the confrontation at the resort were a whirlwind of lawyers, paperwork, and tears. Ethan begged and pleaded, promising to change, swearing he'd do anything to save our marriage. But the trust was shattered, and I knew there was no going back. I stood in my living room, surrounded by boxes. The house that had once been our shared dream now felt like a prison of memories. I'd decided to sell it, to cut all ties with the life I'd shared with Ethan. As I taped up another box, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Ethan standing there, looking haggard and desperate. Helena, please, he said, his voice breaking. Don't do this. We can work it out. I'll go to therapy. I'll quit my job. Anything you want. I felt a flicker of pity, quickly extinguished by the memory of his betrayal. It's too late, Ethan. We're done. He fell to his knees, grabbing my hands. I love you. I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. I gently pulled away. If you loved me, you wouldn't have betrayed me. You wouldn't have tried to force me to give up my dreams. I was wrong, he sobbed. I see that now. Please, give me another chance. For a moment, I wavered. The familiar pull of our shared history tugged at my heart. But then I remembered the strength I'd found in myself, the passion for my work that had sustained me through the darkest days. No, I said firmly. I deserve better, and I'm choosing myself. As I closed the door on Ethan's broken form, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I turned back to the boxes, now seeing them not as an end, but as a beginning. My phone buzzed with a text from my publisher. Final draft received. It's brilliant, Helena. This could be your breakout work. I smiled, feeling a surge of pride and excitement. My graphic novel, born from the pain and growth of the past months, was ready to meet the world. There was a knock at the door. This time, it was Elijah, arms full of packing tape and bubble wrap. Reinforcements have arrived, he announced with a grin. As we worked, Elijah regaled me with stories of his latest adventures, making me laugh for the first time in what felt like ages. I realized how much I'd missed this, simple friendship, unmarred by expectations or betrayal. You know, Elijah said as we sealed the last box, I always knew you were strong, but the way you've handled all this, you're a freaking superhero, Helena. I blushed, but stood a little straighter. I don't know about superhero, but I do feel free, like I can finally be myself without apology. As the moving truck pulled away with the last of my belongings, I stood on the front lawn, keys in hand. Ethan's parents pulled up, here to support me one last time. We're so proud of you, Ethan's mother said, hugging me tight. You'll always be family to us, no matter what. I handed them the keys. Thank you for everything. With a deep breath, I walked away from the house, from the life I'd thought I wanted. Each step felt lighter, filled with possibility. Elijah waited by his car. Ready for your new adventure? I looked back at the house one last time, then turned to face the open road ahead. More than ready. As we drove away, the setting sun painted the sky in brilliant hues of pink and gold. It felt like a sign, an ending, yes, but also a beautiful new beginning. I thought of my graphic novel, of the strong, resilient heroine I'd created. I realized now that she wasn't just a character. She was the woman I'd become through this ordeal. "You know," I said to Elijah, "I think I have an idea for my next book." He grinned. "I can't wait to read it." As the familiar streets of my old life faded in the rearview mirror, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I was excited to see where it would lead. I was Helena, artist, survivor, and author of my own story, and this was just the beginning.
Hello, I'm Karen, an architect by profession. Today, I'm embracing a new role, that of a bride filled with anticipation. As I make my way down the aisle, every aspect of our wedding, from the vibrant blooms to the carefully curated playlist, reflects my detailed planning. I've always envisioned this day as a page lifted from a romance novel, a joyful celebration of our love. At the altar, I see Terry, my soon-to-be husband, an engineer whose pragmatic, down-to-earth approach complements my artistic spirit. Together, we felt like the ideal pair, each enhancing the other's strengths. As I draw closer, I notice a hint of concern in Terry's eyes, though I attribute it to typical pre-wedding nerves. Nearby, I overhear Terry's mother, Melissa, whispering with an intense, unsettling look. Despite her smiles and compliments, her eyes seem to tell a different story. The ceremony moves forward, but Terry's vows feel somewhat cold, and there's a noticeable hesitation before his "I do." During the ring exchange, Melissa makes a point of taking photos, her tone more cautious than celebratory. At the reception, Melissa delivers subtly critical compliments about my dress. She praises its beauty while gently critiquing its unconventional style, lightly noting that we're celebrating love in our unique way. I brush off Melissa's veiled criticisms about our wedding choices. But before things can escalate, Terry steps in, asking his mother for a private moment with me. His intervention feels more like a resignation than genuine support, adding a strange note to what should be a day of happiness. Looking around the room for reassurance, I hope to find comfort amid the wedding chaos. Yet I can't shake the feeling that something fundamental isn't right. The tension is palpable, and the warning signs are too prominent to ignore any longer. As Terry and I step onto the dance floor for our first dance, the physical space between us mirrors the emotional gulf. Although we move in sync, emotionally we are worlds apart. The song meant to symbolize our union now seems ironically cruel. As the last notes of the music die away, Terry's attempt at comfort only highlighted the deepening gap between us. "So, Mrs. Karen, ready for forever?" he asked, the irony of his question thick in the air. I wanted to share my uncertainties, to question if our future together would always be shadowed by today's discomfort. Instead, I hid my doubts behind a tentative smile, clinging to the hope that the dark clouds hanging over us would eventually clear, and that this rocky beginning wasn't a preview of our future. Little did I know, this day was just the prelude to a challenging period that would test not only the resilience of our marriage, but also the core of my identity. As we raised our glasses in a toast to our union, the celebratory words rang hollow, eclipsed by an unsettling sense of loss. The journey back to my home, a charming 3-bedroom house that symbolized my hard-won independence, marked the start of our shared life. This space was meant to be our sanctuary, the solid foundation for our future together. However, it quickly turned into the battleground for a series of conflicts that felt more like intrusions than the beginnings of marital harmony. Melissa, residing just a short distance away, began to drop by with alarming regularity, often uninvited. Her criticisms were relentless, targeting everything from my cooking to the decor of our home. Whether she was complaining about the taste of my dishes or the choice of bathroom tiles, her critiques were varied yet consistently harsh. Terry's efforts to mediate were weak at best, seeming more performative than genuinely protective. Melissa's intrusions became a regular ordeal. Each visit was another chance for her to assert dominance through thinly veiled insults and critiques. The turning point came one afternoon when Melissa arrived with suitcases in tow, her intentions clear and her sense of entitlement palpable. "This is no ordinary visit," she declared, breezing past me to place her luggage in my favorite cozy corner by the window, a haven for my quiet reflection and reading. "This spot will suit me just fine," Melissa announced, her tone leaving no room for argument. As I watched Melissa settle into our home, my heart sank. I caught Terry's eye, silently pleading for him to step in and protect the sanctity of the place we called ours. In a moment that called for unity, I pulled him aside, my voice shaking with emotion. "This is our home, Terry. Shouldn't we have talked about this together?" His look was distant, missing the warmth that had once comforted me. "Mom's getting older, Karen. It's not fair for her to be alone. She needs to be with family," he explained, emphasizing family in a way that made me feel more like an outsider than a partner. "So I'm not family, is that it?" The words stumbled out, heavy with hurt as tears began to form. Terry replied quickly, his patience thinning. "You know that's not what I mean, Karen, but I owe it to her." "What about what we owe to each other? Aren't we supposed to be building our life together, not adjusting it to include your mom as a permanent third?" I argued, feeling as though my words were just bouncing off him. My concerns, my feelings seemed to vanish into thin air. And just like that, the decision was made. Melissa's presence in our home was a done deal. With Melissa in the house, the atmosphere changed drastically. Every space that once held our shared dreams now carried the burden of tension and disagreement. My treasured reading nook was overrun with her belongings, the kitchen transformed into a constant battlefield of her critiques. Terry, the man I married, now seemed to be more in sync with Melissa than with me. It dawned on me that this battle was not just for my marriage or my personal space, but for my identity, my dignity, and my peace. How did we get here? How had my desires, my space, and my voice become secondary to Melissa's preferences? The transformation was dark. My beloved nook became a symbol of Melissa's encroachment, the kitchen a venue for her endless criticism, and my husband a stranger aligned with what felt like an adversary. This was only the beginning. Life, already filled with challenges, spiraled into a relentless nightmare as the oppressive atmosphere in our home mirrored the diminishing of my own space and voice. Amidst this mounting tension, a discovery brought everything into sharp focus. The unmistakable sight of 2 lines on a pregnancy test, signaling the start of a new life. In the chaos, discovering I was pregnant should have been a joyous revelation. However, the dense, tense air around me turned almost suffocating as I held the pregnancy test, my hands trembling with a mix of excitement and dread. This milestone, which I had always imagined would be one of the happiest moments of my life, now felt like an overwhelming burden. Alone in the bathroom, tears welled up as I confronted my reflection, the reality hitting me hard. The stakes were now much higher. When I finally shared the news with Terry, his reaction was underwhelming. "Well, that's something," he muttered, quickly shifting the conversation to some renovation idea his mother had proposed. Melissa didn't just see my pregnancy as big news. She saw it as her new project. She took it upon herself to manage every aspect of it, from my diet to the birthing plan, all under the guise of being helpful. Her interference soon became oppressive. She critiqued every bite I ate, casting judgmental glances at even the simplest meals and questioning my weight management. Despite my assurances that everything was doctor-approved, she scoffed. Doctors these days have no clue. Dismissively convinced her old-school methods were superior to modern medical advice. As my pregnancy advanced, Melissa's control over my life grew even more intrusive. She expected me to maintain our home to her strict standards, regardless of my physical state. "Karen, why isn't the living room clean yet?" She would demand, comfortably ensconced in my reading nook, which she had taken over as her base for endless phone scrolling and TV watching. My pleas for rest were ignored, with Melissa dismissing pregnancy as no excuse for laziness. Terry's silence during these interactions only deepened the tension. His lack of support became painfully clear, especially during a dinner that escalated into a heated argument over baby names. Melissa sharply criticized my chosen name, and that was the final straw. "Enough, Melissa. This is my child, and I will decide how to name them," I asserted, my patience finally snapping. Her response was one of sheer indignation, as if my desire to control my own life was a direct affront to her. Terry's feeble attempts at mediation, often siding with his mother and dismissing me as overly emotional, only widened the rift between us. This growing divide underscored a stark reality. I was not only battling for my voice and space in my own home, but now, more critically, for the right to shape my future and that of my child. In all the chaos, the revelation that I was pregnant deepened the already suffocating atmosphere of our home. Holding the pregnancy test, my hands trembled with a mix of anticipation and dread. I had always imagined that discovering I was pregnant would be one of the most joyful moments in my life, filled with excitement and celebration. However, as I stood alone in the bathroom, facing my reflection with tears welling up, this milestone felt like a daunting burden instead. When I shared the news with Terry, his reaction was disappointingly subdued. "Well, that's something," he muttered, quickly changing the subject to a renovation idea his mother had proposed. It was clear that Melissa viewed my pregnancy not just as news, but as her new project. She took it upon herself to oversee everything from my diet to the birthing plan, all under the pretense of being helpful. Melissa's interference soon evolved into outright control. She monitored every bite I ate, casting judgmental glances at even the simplest meals and questioning my weight management, despite my assurances that my diet was doctor-approved. She scoffed, "Doctors these days have no clue," utterly convinced her dated knowledge was superior to contemporary medical advice. As my pregnancy progressed, Melissa's demands grew increasingly unreasonable. She expected me to maintain the house to her exacting standards, no matter my condition. "Karen, why isn't the living room clean yet?" she would demand, ensconced in my once peaceful reading nook, which she had commandeered for endless phone scrolling and TV watching. My pleas for rest were ignored. Melissa dismissed pregnancy as no excuse for laziness. Terry's silence during these interactions only intensified the tension. His lack of support became glaringly obvious, especially during a dinner that spiraled into an argument over baby names. Melissa's harsh critique of my chosen name was the last straw. "Enough, Melissa. This is my child, and I will decide how to name them," I declared, my patience completely eroded. Her reaction was one of sheer indignation, as if my desire to make decisions about my own life was a direct insult to her. Terry's feeble attempts at mediation, often siding with his mother and dismissing me as overly emotional, only deepened the rift between us. I felt more isolated than ever, trapped in a home that had transformed into a battleground. Where my voice seemed increasingly insignificant, it was no longer just about selecting a baby name. It was about reclaiming my autonomy, my dignity, and the sense of belonging that had been steadily undermined by Melissa's domineering presence. As I stared at the reflection of my once gleaming wedding ring, I scarcely recognized the woman looking back at me. A woman who was gradually losing everything she cherished. Her sanctuary, her self-respect, and most painfully, her resolve to stand up for herself. During one of our tense confrontations, Melissa, brimming with a vindictive sense of triumph, delivered a blow that changed everything. Melissa insinuated that perhaps I didn't belong in their family if I couldn't handle a simple disagreement. The most excruciating part, though, was Terry's silence. His lack of response was deafening, reinforcing the notion that this struggle had been my harsh reality for much too long. Days melded into one another as I moved through a house that felt less and less like home, clinging to the sole beacon of hope I had left, the life growing inside me. Yet even this small comfort seemed under siege in the increasingly toxic environment. The tipping point came on a cold evening during yet another fraught family dinner. Despite my efforts to craft a flawless meal, Melissa's criticisms were relentless, attacking everything from the seasoning to the execution. Each of her harsh words felt like a physical blow, slowly chipping away at my already brittle confidence. But it was her next taunt, questioning my capability as a mother based on my so-called failure to manage household chores, that cut the deepest. Terry's quiet acceptance of her words was the final push I needed. Fueled by a potent mix of pent-up resentment and sheer desperation, I found my voice. I've been carrying our child, managing our home, and enduring endless criticism from your mother, and you're telling me to step it up. The shock on their faces was evident, but I was past caring. For too long, I had allowed myself to be diminished and demeaned. But in that moment, I reclaimed my voice. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. The clarity of my decision sliced through years of suppressed feelings like a beacon of light. It was a declaration of my refusal to endure any more disrespect or emotional torment. My voice quivered with emotion as I spoke, yet I remained resolute. I refuse to raise my child in an environment where their mother is constantly undermined. If this is your idea of family, count me out. I declared, my words ringing with finality. As I rose from the dinner table, leaving their stunned silence behind, gathering only the essentials, I made my way to the door, my hands trembling as I reached for the handle, eager to escape the oppressive atmosphere. Melissa, this house is mine. I bought it. I decide who stays and who goes. Terry's voice broke through, laced with desperation. Karen, please, let's talk about this. But I was beyond negotiation. There's nothing left to discuss, I replied, my tears bearing witness to the agony of my decision. Stepping out into the cold night felt like the beginning of a new chapter in my life, one filled with uncertainty, but also tinged with a profound sense of liberation. The closing door behind me marked the end of a tumultuous saga, a final farewell to a life I could no longer endure. With each step, a mix of pain and determination coursed through me, fueled by the urgent need to reclaim my autonomy. The journey to my parents' home blurred with cold exhaustion and heartache. Just moments from the sanctuary of my childhood haven, a stumble sent me crashing to the ground. The physical pain was a mere echo of my inner turmoil, yet far from deterring me, this fall only strengthened my resolve. Arriving at my parents' doorstep, the concern on their faces mirrored the gravity of my situation. As they rushed me to the hospital, I realized that this moment of vulnerability marked not just an end, but also a new beginning. Lying in the hospital bed, coming to terms with my reality, I knew that returning to my former life was no longer an option. This breaking point was a crucial step towards reclaiming the life and dignity that had been stripped away from me. A painful yet necessary transition towards healing and independence. The clarity that comes with such pivotal moments was profound, illuminating the path forward from the shadows of my troubled past to a future I would shape myself. Amidst a whirlwind of emotions, I stood surrounded by the comforting yet anxious presence of my parents. Their silent worry spoke volumes about their fears concerning the true state of my marriage, now starkly revealed in its troubled depths. Breaking the heavy silence, my mother voiced her concern, her words laden with the weight of the unfolding reality. "Karen, dear, what's your plan now?" Unsure yet resolute, I replied, "I'm not sure, Mom, but one thing's for sure. I can't go back to that life. Not now, not ever." My declaration, more assured than I expected, resonated with newfound determination. My father, who had been pacing anxiously, paused to offer reassurance, emphasizing their unwavering support regardless of my decision. He urged me to consider not just my future, but also the child growing inside me. His words prompted a silent acknowledgement from me. My mind had been a battleground of uncertain scenarios, each fraught with the possibility of a fresh start. The unexpected buzz of my phone shattered my reverie. A message from Terry, a plea for communication. Yet to me, his timing felt like a door long closed, his words unseen. Left hanging in the void as I powered off my phone, a symbolic end to our dialogue. My next steps became clear, marked by action rather than words. Consulting a family lawyer was my first decisive act toward untangling the turmoil of my marriage. With the unwavering support of my parents, we navigated the cold, legal breakdown of our union, discussing divorce, custody arrangements, and financial support. Despite the sterile nature of these discussions, they empowered me, marking the initial steps towards seizing control of my destiny and securing the well-being of my unborn child. Within a week, Terry and Melissa received the formal notices. Divorce papers for Terry and an eviction notice for Melissa from the home that was legally mine. Alongside these were demands for substantial child support and compensation for the emotional turmoil I had endured. Though drastic, these actions were imperative, severing the ties that had long bound me to a life of despair. When I eventually re-engaged with my phone, it was inundated with Terry's attempts to reconnect. His messages carried a blend of regret and a plea for reconciliation. Yet the wounds inflicted by nights of humiliation, years of neglect, and Melissa's calculated malice, all silently condoned by Terry, ran too deep. The fleeting temptation to entertain his overtures was swiftly overshadowed by the memory of enduring pain. This moment wasn't merely about closing a chapter. It was about reclaiming my narrative, where the shadows of the past no longer dictated the brightness of my future. The love I once harbored for Terry had been utterly overshadowed by the grief of our disintegrating marriage. Taking decisive steps, I cleared away all remnants of him from my life. I deleted his messages, erased his contact details, and blocked him on all social media. To me, Terry had become a chapter of my past, a distressing period I was more than ready to close. I knew the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. Navigating a divorce with a child on the way was no simple journey. But I was determined to forge my path, stepping away from the stifling shadows that had once engulfed me toward a future brimming with hope. On the day of the court proceedings, the room was permeated with a sterile chill, characteristic of spaces where fates are decided. Seated beside me, my lawyer radiated confidence, while my parents provided silent yet steadfast support from behind. Across the aisle, Terry appeared lost, slowly coming to terms with the reality before him, while Melissa's expression fluctuated between shock and defiance. As the session commenced and the judge entered, prompting everyone to rise, a whirlwind of legal motions and arguments unfolded. It seemed as though Melissa and Terry were truly seeing the repercussions of their actions for the first time, not just through the legal ramifications, but through my eyes as well. When Melissa was called to testify, her usual bravado faded. She tried to justify her intrusions as concern for her son's well-being, but her arguments fell flat under the judge's skeptical scrutiny. The judge delivered a clear and firm verdict. I was granted a full divorce and sole custody of our unborn child. Terry was mandated to provide child support, and Melissa was hit with a substantial fine for emotional abuse and harassment, leaving her visibly shaken. As the judge's gavel fell, I felt a wave of liberation mixed with a tinge of melancholy. My marriage had not ended with loud confrontations, but rather with the quiet shuffling of papers and the firm, unwavering voice of justice. This chapter of my life was now firmly closed, paving the way for a fresh start free from the burdens of the past. The cost of my newfound freedom was something I could never have anticipated on the day I exchanged vows. Exiting the courtroom, Terry approached with a look of bewilderment, voicing his remorse and disbelief at how our lives had unraveled. Yet as I looked into his eyes, I no longer saw my future, but a profound void where love had once lived. I never envisioned this as our ending, Terry, but apologies can't undo what's been done, I stated firmly, turning away to leave the past behind. Melissa saw my gaze, perhaps in search of forgiveness or acknowledgement. However, I could not afford that closure. She had taken too much from me. Refusing to grant Melissa the satisfaction of seeing any further impact on my spirit, I stepped into the embrace of the outside world, which seemed to welcome me with open arms. The sun shone brighter, the colors appeared more vibrant. It felt as if I was seeing through a new lens, one not clouded by the shadows of past turmoil. My mother's embrace and her words of pride brought tears to my eyes. "You're truly free now, Karen," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't have faced this without you and Dad." I responded, my heart swelling with gratitude for their steadfast support. That evening, in the tranquility of what was now solely my home, I discovered a profound peace. Alone yet far from lonely, for the first time in what felt like forever, I was free to live on my terms. The path ahead as a single mother seemed daunting, yet as I felt my unborn child's gentle movements, a wave of confidence washed over me. We would navigate this journey together. I was certain of it. The trials I had endured had brought me to this juncture of self-discovery. Although they left scars, these scars told a story of resilience, not surrender. Gazing toward the horizon, I felt propelled not merely by circumstances, but by choice. This realization imbued me with a profound sense of empowerment, poised to embrace the future. I was motivated not out of obligation, but from a place of deliberate determination. I recognized this moment as the dawn of a significant new chapter in my life, ready to take on whatever lay ahead with a renewed spirit and unwavering resolve.
The shattering of glass pierced the silence of our living room. A framed photo lay smashed on the hardwood floor, the shards of glass glinting like tiny daggers. My hands trembled as I stared at the intruder standing before me, a woman clutching the hand of a young boy, his eyes wide with confusion. Richard, my husband of 23 years, stepped forward, his face ashen. "Dana, this is Jenna, and Lucas. They're my family, too." The words hung in the air, a suffocating weight pressing against my chest. I opened my mouth, but no sound escaped. How could this be happening? My perfect life, the life I had fought so hard to build, was crumbling before my eyes. "You have another family?" I finally managed to choke out, my voice barely above a whisper. "How could you do this to us?" Richard's gaze dropped to the floor, unable to meet mine. "I'm sorry, Dana. I never meant for it to go this far." Jenna shifted uncomfortably, her grip on Lucas tightening. "Richard told me you knew about us. He said you were okay with the arrangement." My heart pounded in my ears as I struggled to comprehend the depth of his deception. Anger surged through me, burning away the shock. "You lied to her, too? You're a coward, Richard, a coward and a liar!" Amelia, our 22-year-old daughter, emerged from her bedroom, her eyes wide with confusion. "Mom, what's going on?" Before I could respond, Richard stepped forward, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "Amelia, honey, I have something to tell you." "Save it," I snapped, my voice trembling with rage. "You've done enough damage. Get out of our house, Richard. Get out and never come back." Amelia's brow furrowed, and she looked from me to Richard, her gaze finally settling on Jenna and the child. Understanding dawned on her face, and her expression hardened. "You sick bastard," she spat, her words dripping with venom. Richard flinched as if struck. "Amelia, please let me explain." "No," I shouted, my voice raw. "You don't get to explain anything. You've been living a lie, and now the truth is out. You made your choices, Richard, and now you have to face the consequences." Jenna's grip on Lucas loosened, and she took a tentative step forward. "Dana, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." I held up a hand, cutting her off. "Just go. Take your son and get out of my house. I don't want to see either of you ever again." Tears welled in Jenna's eyes, but she nodded, her shoulders slumping in defeat. She turned and fled, Lucas trailing behind her, casting one last bewildered glance over his shoulder. Richard stood motionless, his face a mask of anguish. "Dana, please, we can work through this. I love you." I shook my head, my heart shattering with each word. "No, Richard, you lost the right to love me the moment you betrayed our family. Our marriage is over." As the weight of my words settled over us, a heavy silence descended. In that moment, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The life I had known, the love I had cherished, was gone, shattered like the broken frame on the floor. The weeks following Richard's departure were a blur. Amelia and I existed in a state of numb disbelief, the weight of his betrayal suffocating us with each passing day. We tried to resume our normal routines, but the empty spaces he left behind served as constant reminders of the life we had lost. One evening, as I sat at the kitchen table, staring vacantly at a stack of unpaid bills, Amelia emerged from her room, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy. "Mom, we need to talk," she said, her voice quivering with barely contained anger. I looked up, my heart sinking at the expression on her face. "What is it, honey?" Amelia tossed a thick manila envelope onto the table, scattering the bills. "I found this in Dad's office. It's everything. Bank statements, credit card receipts, proof of his double life." I reached for the envelope with trembling hands, dread coiling in my stomach. As I rifled through the contents, a sickening realization dawned on me. Richard hadn't just been unfaithful. He had been embezzling from his company, siphoning funds to support his secret family. "That bastard," Amelia spat, her fists clenched at her sides. "He's been lying to us for years, Mom. He's been stealing, cheating, and God knows what else." I felt bile rise in my throat as the full extent of Richard's deception became clear. "How could he do this to us?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Amelia's expression hardened, her eyes blazing with determination. "He's going to pay for this, Mom. We're going to make sure he pays." I stared at her, uncertainty gnawing at me. "What are you saying, Amelia?" She leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. "I'm saying we expose him for the lying, thieving scumbag he is. We take all this evidence to his company, to the police. We burn his life to the ground, just like he did to ours." A part of me recoiled at the thought of such vengeance, but another, darker part couldn't deny the appeal of seeing Richard suffer the consequences of his actions. "What about Jenna and the kid?" I asked, my voice trembling. "They're caught up in this, too." Amelia's expression softened, just for a moment. "We'll reach out to Jenna. Maybe she'll see reason and help us take him down." I nodded slowly, my mind whirling with 1,000 different thoughts and emotions. "Okay," I said finally, my resolve hardening. "We'll do it. We'll make him pay for what he's done." Amelia's grim smile sent a shiver down my spine. "Good. It's time we showed that lying piece of garbage what happens when you mess with the Whitaker women." As she turned and stalked back to her room, I couldn't help but wonder if we were embarking on a path we might one day regret. But in that moment, all I could feel was a burning desire for retribution. A need to see Richard suffer as we had suffered, to make him pay for the lies that had shattered our lives. In the days that followed, I found myself standing at a crossroads, torn between the desire for vengeance and the fear of diving headlong into a path of destruction. As I pored over the evidence Amelia had uncovered, the weight of Richard's betrayal threatened to crush me. Amelia, however, remained resolute, her determination unwavering. "We can't let him get away with this, Mom," she insisted, her voice laced with urgency. "He needs to face the consequences of his actions." I nodded numbly, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts and emotions. A part of me longed to see Richard suffer, to watch as his carefully constructed facade crumbled around him. But another part, the part that still clung to the remnants of the love I once felt, recoiled at the thought of such vindictiveness. "What if we go too far?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "What if we become the monsters we're trying to destroy?" Amelia's expression softened, and she reached across the table to grip my hand. "Mom, we're not the ones who created this mess. We're just fighting to reclaim what's ours, our dignity, our self-respect. Richard is the one who chose to lie and cheat. He's the monster here." Her words resonated deep within me, igniting a spark of determination that had been flickering dangerously close to extinguishment. She was right. Richard had brought this upon himself, and it was time he faced the music. "You're right," I said, squeezing her hand. "We can't let him get away with this. We need to take him down, once and for all." Amelia's eyes gleamed with a mixture of relief and anticipation. "Good, then let's get to work." Over the next few days, we pored over the evidence, meticulously piecing together a timeline of Richard's deceit. Bank statements, credit card receipts, and damning emails painted a picture of a man consumed by greed and selfishness, willing to sacrifice everything, including his family, for his own desires. As we worked, I could feel the anger simmering within me, a slow burn that threatened to consume me if left unchecked. Each new revelation, each fresh betrayal, stoked the flames of my fury until I could barely contain the rage that coursed through my veins. Finally, we had everything we needed: a damning dossier of Richard's misdeeds, a veritable mountain of evidence that would bury him beneath the weight of his own lies. "It's time," Amelia said, her voice steely with determination. "Time to make that bastard pay." I nodded, my jaw clenched tight. Yes, it's time to end this, once and for all. As we stood there, united in our quest for retribution, I knew there was no turning back. Richard had made his choices, and now he would face the consequences, no matter how steep the price. With our dossier of evidence against Richard firmly in hand, Amelia and I knew it was time to take action. We couldn't move forward alone, not if we wanted to ensure Richard faced the full weight of his crimes. "We need help," Amelia said grimly, her fingers drumming against the tabletop. "Legal help." I nodded, my stomach churning with a mixture of apprehension and anticipation. "You're right. We'll need an attorney, someone who can navigate the legal system and make sure Richard can't wriggle his way out of this." Amelia's eyes narrowed, her jaw set in a hard line. "I know just the person." A few days later, we found ourselves seated across from Samantha Kendrick, a no-nonsense attorney with a reputation for taking on high-profile cases. As we laid out the evidence before her, her expression remained inscrutable, betraying none of the shock or disgust we had expected. "This is quite a dossier," she said at last, her voice calm and measured. "If even half of these allegations are true, your husband is in deep trouble." Amelia leaned forward, her eyes blazing with intensity. "Every single word is true, Miss Kendrick. That lying, cheating scumbag has been deceiving us for years, stealing from his company to fund his double life." Samantha held up a hand, silencing Amelia's outburst. "I believe you, Miss Whitaker. But belief alone won't be enough to convict your husband. We'll need concrete evidence, a paper trail that leaves no doubt as to his guilt." I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. "We understand. What do you need from us?" Over the next few weeks, Samantha guided us through the process of collecting additional evidence, ensuring that every I was dotted and every T was crossed. Her meticulous attention to detail was both reassuring and unsettling, a constant reminder of the gravity of the situation we found ourselves in. As our case against Richard grew stronger, Amelia and I faced another hurdle: the question of what to do about Jenna and her son, Lucas. They were collateral damage in Richard's web of lies, innocent victims caught up in his selfish scheme. "We should reach out to her," Amelia said one evening, her voice laced with a surprising note of compassion. "She might be willing to help us, especially if it means protecting Lucas." I hesitated, unsure of how to proceed. What if she's loyal to Richard? What if she refuses to cooperate? Amelia's expression hardened. Then we'll have to find another way. But we owe it to ourselves and to her to at least try. In the end, Jenna proved to be an unexpected ally, her anger and hurt at Richard's deception eclipsing any lingering loyalty she might have felt. She provided us with a wealth of information, corroborating our evidence and filling in the gaps in Richard's carefully constructed lies. As the final pieces fell into place, a sense of grim determination settled over us. We had done everything in our power to ensure that Richard would face the consequences of his actions, no matter how painful or devastating they might be. "It's time," Samantha said, her voice quiet but resolute. "Time to bring him down." Amelia and I exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between us. There was no turning back now. The wheels of justice had been set in motion, and Richard's world was about to come crashing down around him. As the days ticked by, a sense of foreboding settled over our household. Despite our meticulous preparations, a nagging doubt lingered in the back of my mind. What if Richard somehow managed to evade justice? What if, after everything we'd been through, he still found a way to escape the consequences of his actions? Amelia, ever the voice of reason, brushed aside my concerns with a wave of her hand. "He's not getting away this time, Mom. We've got him dead to rights." Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. It was as if a storm was brewing on the horizon, and we were caught in its inexorable path. My fears were confirmed one evening when Samantha called, her usually unflappable demeanor replaced by a sense of urgency. "We may have a problem," she said without preamble. "I've received word that your husband is planning to flee the country." The news hit me like a punch to the gut, stealing the breath from my lungs. "What? When? How?" Samantha's voice was grim. "From what my sources tell me, he's been liquidating assets and making arrangements to leave the country within the next few days. He's taking Jenna and the boy with him." Anger surged through me, hot and pulsing. The coward was running, trying to escape the consequences of his actions just as we were closing in. "That lying, spineless bastard," Amelia snarled, her hands clenched into white-knuckled fists. "He's not getting away that easily." I drew in a shaky breath, forcing myself to remain calm. "What do we do, Samantha? How do we stop him?" There was a pause on the other end of the line, and I could almost picture Samantha weighing her options. We move forward with our plan, but we do it now, before he has a chance to disappear. We confront him, hit him with everything we've got, the evidence, the charges, all of it. We take away his ability to run. Amelia nodded, her jaw set in a hard line. "Let's do it. I'll call Jenna, make sure she's on board." As I hung up the phone, a sense of determination washed over me. We were so close, so tantalizingly close to seeing Richard face the consequences of his actions. I couldn't, let him wriggle free, not after everything he'd put us through. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity as we finalized our plans. Jenna, her loyalty to Richard long since evaporated, agreed to testify against him, providing a damning first-hand account of his deception and manipulation. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. As we made our way to Richard's office, the weight of the moment pressed down upon us like a physical force. This was it. The culmination of weeks of planning, of pain and anger, and a burning desire for justice. Samantha squeezed my arm reassuringly. "It's going to be okay," she murmured. "We've got this." I nodded, forcing a tight smile. "I know. It's time for Richard to face the music." As we stepped into the building, I could feel the storm gathering around us, the winds of change whipping at our backs. There was no turning back now. The only way out was through, and I was determined to see this through to the bitter end, no matter the cost. The tension in the air was palpable as we strode into Richard's office, our footsteps echoing like thunderclaps in the hushed stillness. Samantha took the lead, her shoulders squared and her gaze unwavering, while Amelia and I flanked her on either side, our faces set in grim determination. Richard looked up from his desk, his expression morphing from surprise to confusion to outright panic as he registered our presence. "Dana? Amelia? What's going on?" Before he could say another word, Samantha stepped forward, brandishing a thick manila envelope. "Richard Whittaker, you're under investigation for embezzlement, fraud, and adultery." The color drained from Richard's face as the weight of Samantha's words sank in. "What? That's absurd. You can't possibly believe these ridiculous accusations." Amelia's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "Cut the crap, Dad. We know everything. The lies, the cheating, the secret family. It's all over." Richard's eyes darted back and forth, his mind clearly racing to concoct some new web of deception. "Jenna told you, didn't she? That lying little bee?" "Don't you dare!" I cut him off, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "Don't you dare try to pin this on Jenna or anyone else. This is your doing, Richard. Your lies, your betrayal. Samantha stepped forward again, her expression impassive. "We have irrefutable evidence of your misdeeds, Mr. Whitaker. Bank statements, financial records, eyewitness testimony, all of it points to a pattern of embezzlement and fraud stretching back years." Richard's face contorted in a snarl of rage. "You think you can take me down with some flimsy evidence and trumped-up charges? I'll bury you all in lawsuits, you hear me? This isn't over, not by a long shot." Amelia's laughter was cold and derisive. "Keep telling yourself that, Dad. Your days of lying and cheating are over. You're finished." As if on cue, the door to Richard's office burst open, and a trio of stern-faced security guards entered, flanked by 2 police officers. "Richard Whitaker, you're under arrest for embezzlement and fraud. You have the right to remain silent." The world seemed to slow as the officers approached, their movements deliberate and inexorable. Richard's mask of bravado crumbled, his eyes widening in panic as the gravity of the situation finally sank in. "No, wait, you don't understand," he sputtered, his hands raised in a futile gesture of surrender. "This is all a mistake. Dana, please, you have to believe me." But his pleas fell on deaf ears as the officers seized him, roughly spinning him around and snapping the handcuffs into place. As they led him away, his gaze met mine, and for a fleeting moment I saw a glimmer of the man I had once loved, the man who had promised to cherish and protect me, the man who had sworn to love me until the end of time. Then the moment passed, and all I saw was a stranger, a man consumed by greed and selfishness, a man who had sacrificed everything for his own twisted desires. And in that instant, I knew that the Richard what had loved was gone, lost forever in the tangled web of his own lies. As the door swung shut behind him, a profound silence descended upon the room, broken only by the faint sound of Amelia's ragged breathing. We had done it. We had brought Richard Whitaker to his knees, exposed his lies for the world to see. But even as a sense of grim satisfaction washed over me, I couldn't help but wonder if the price we had paid was too high. Had our quest for vengeance cost us more than we could ever hope to regain? Only time would tell. In the aftermath of Richard's arrest, a surreal calm settled over our lives. After the whirlwind of emotions and the relentless pursuit of justice, the sudden stillness felt almost suffocating. Amelia and I sat in silence, staring at the now empty space where Richard's presence had once loomed large. It was as if a weight had been lifted from our shoulders, but in its place lingered a hollow ache, the echoes of a life we had once known, now forever altered. "Do you think it was worth it?" Amelia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I considered her question, turning it over in my mind like a puzzle with no clear solution. "I don't know," I admitted finally. "Part of me feels like we did the right thing, that he got what he deserved, but another part—" My voice trailed off, the words catching in my throat. Amelia nodded, her expression somber. "Yeah, I know what you mean." In the days that followed, we learned the full extent of Richard's betrayal. The embezzlement charges alone were staggering, with evidence suggesting he had siphoned off hundreds of thousands of dollars from his company over the years. But it was the personal revelations that cut deepest. The secret bank accounts, the hidden assets, the paper trail of lies that stretched back nearly a decade. Jenna, it seemed, had been just one in a long line of mistresses, a mere footnote in Richard's sordid chronicle of infidelity. And poor Lucas, that innocent child caught in the crossfire of his father's selfish actions, was left to pick up the pieces of a life he had never asked for. As the media frenzy swirled around us, Amelia and I retreated into ourselves, seeking solace in the quiet moments away from the prying eyes and endless questions. We had sacrificed so much in our pursuit of vengeance, and now that the dust had settled, we were left to confront the consequences of our choices. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Jenna standing on the doorstep, her eyes rimmed with tears. "Dana," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "I just wanted to say thank you for everything." I blinked, taken aback by her unexpected gratitude. "Jenna, I don't know what to say." She shook her head, a sad smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "You gave me the strength to break free, to see Richard for the monster he truly is. I'll never be able to repay that debt." As she turned to leave, I found my voice once more. "Jenna, wait." She paused, her eyes questioning. "What will you do now?" I asked. With Lucas, I mean? Jenna's expression hardened, a steely resolve settling over her features. I'll raise him to be a better man than his father, to know the value of honesty, loyalty, and integrity. Richard may have given him life, but I'll make sure he never inherits his father's sins. With those words, she was gone, disappearing into the gathering dusk as abruptly as she had arrived. As I watched her retreating figure, I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope amidst the lingering sadness and regret. Perhaps in the end our quest for vengeance had achieved something greater than mere retribution. Perhaps, by exposing Richard's lies and holding him accountable, we had created a ripple effect, a chance for others like Jenna and Lucas to break free from the chains of his deception and forge a better path forward. As the last rays of sunlight faded, casting long shadows across the room, I realized that our journey was far from over. The road ahead would be long and arduous, paved with difficult choices and painful realizations. But for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I allowed myself to believe that we might just make it through. Battered and bruised, perhaps, but stronger for having weathered the storm. The weeks following Richard's arrest were a whirlwind of chaos and change. As the legal proceedings ground on, Amelia and I found ourselves thrust into the harsh glare of the media spotlight, our private lives suddenly laid bare for the world to dissect and analyze. Through it all, we clung to each other, a united front against the storm of scrutiny and judgment that seemed to rage endlessly around us. Samantha, our steadfast ally, guided us through the legal quagmire, her unwavering presence a constant source of strength and support. "It won't be easy," she warned us, her expression grave. "Richard's lawyers will fight tooth and nail to discredit you, to paint you as vindictive and irrational. You need to be prepared for that." Amelia's jaw clenched, her eyes burning with a fierce determination. "Let them try. We have the truth on our side, and that's all that matters." As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the weight of our decision began to take its toll. The sleepless nights, the endless questioning, the constant reminder of the life we had lost, it all threatened to crush us beneath its unbearable weight. But through it all, we persevered, buoyed by an unshakable belief that we had done the right thing. Richard's web of lies had been unraveled, his carefully constructed facade torn down brick by brick. He would face the consequences of his actions, no matter how long or arduous the road ahead might be. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the day of reckoning arrived. Richard, his once confident demeanor replaced by a pallid, haunted expression, stood before the judge, his fate hanging in the balance. As the charges were read aloud, embezzlement, fraud, adultery, a hush fell over the courtroom. Even the most seasoned journalists and legal experts seemed taken aback by the sheer magnitude of his misdeeds. Amelia and I sat in the front row, our hands clasped together in a silent show of solidarity. Jenna was there too, her eyes fixed on Richard with a mixture of anger and pity. When the verdict was finally announced, guilty on all counts, a collective gasp rippled through the room. Richard's shoulders slumped, his head bowing in defeat as the weight of his sins finally came crashing down upon him. In the aftermath, as the media circus swirled around us once more, Amelia and I found ourselves clinging to each other, tears of relief and sorrow mingling on our cheeks. "It's over," Amelia whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "It's finally over." I nodded, my throat constricted by a torrent of conflicting emotions. The road ahead was still shrouded in uncertainty, but for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I could see a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. In the days and weeks that followed, we began to piece our lives back together, one fragile step at a time. Jenna, her custody of Lucas secured, reached out to us, and an unlikely bond of understanding began to form. We were survivors, united by the scars of Richard's betrayal, but determined to forge a new path forward. As for Richard, his fate was sealed. A lengthy prison sentence, his once promising future reduced to a mere footnote in the annals of his own hubris and greed. But even as the world around us moved on, the echoes of our ordeal lingered, a constant reminder of the price we had paid for justice. The road to healing would be long and arduous, paved with difficult choices and painful realizations. Yet as I stood on the precipice of this new chapter, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope, a belief that, no matter how dark the night might seem, the dawn would eventually break, ushering in a new era of peace and redemption. For in the end, that was the true legacy of our quest for vengeance. Not the destruction of one man, but the reclamation of our own strength, our own resilience, our own indomitable spirit. And as the first rays of sunlight peeked over the horizon, casting a warm glow across the room, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, united in our determination to forge a brighter future, one built on the ashes of the past, but rising ever higher toward the promise of a new dawn. You're never going to be as perfect as my mother. Jasper's words cut through the air like a knife. I stand there stunned as my husband of 5 years glares at me with a mixture of anger and contempt. I'm not your mother, and I never will be, I shoot back, my voice trembling with rage. I'm done trying to live up to her impossible standards. Jasper scoffs, rolling his eyes. You couldn't even if you tried. She's everything you're not, elegant, refined, and knows how to keep a home. I feel my blood boil. Is that what you want? A housewife who caters to your every whim? Well, I've got news for you, Jasper. I'm my own person, with my own dreams and aspirations. I won't be your little puppet. He steps closer, his face inches from mine. You knew what you were getting into when you married me. I thought you'd be different, but you're just like all the rest, selfish and ungrateful. Tears sting my eyes, but I refuse to let them fall. I won't give him the satisfaction of seeing me cry. If wanting to be treated with respect and equality makes me selfish, then so be it. I'm not going to apologize for standing up for myself. Jasper's jaw clenches, and for a moment I think he might hit me. But instead he turns on his heel and storms out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I sink to the floor, my legs no longer able to support me. How did we get here? When did the man I fell in love with turn into this cruel, controlling stranger? I think back to our early days when Jasper was charming and attentive. He swept me off my feet with grand gestures and promises of a beautiful future together. But as soon as we said I do, everything changed. At first it was subtle. A snide comment here, a disapproving look there. But over time his behavior became more overt. He started dictating what I could wear, who I could see, and how I should spend my time. He even convinced me to quit my job, claiming that he wanted me to focus on being a homemaker. I thought I could handle it, that I could be the perfect wife he wanted. But no matter how hard I tried, it was never enough. And now as I sit here on the cold, hard floor, I realize that I've lost myself in the process. A sudden wave of determination washes over me. I won't let Jasper break me. I won't let him control my life any longer. I push myself up, wiping away the tears that have managed to escape. It's time to take back my power, to rediscover the strong, independent woman I once was. I don't know how I'll do it, but I know I can't continue living like this. As I stand there, staring at the closed door, I make a silent vow to myself. I will find a way out of this toxic marriage, no matter what it takes. I will rebuild my life on my own terms, and I will never again let anyone dim my light. With a deep breath, I take my first step towards freedom, towards the future I know I deserve. It won't be easy, but I'm ready to fight for it, for myself and for the life I know I'm meant to live. As I sit in my car, parked outside Naomi's house, I can't help but reflect on the past 5 years of my marriage. How did I let things get so bad? I used to be a strong, independent woman, but somehow Jasper managed to chip away at my self-esteem, piece by piece. I think back to the early warning signs. The way he would criticize my cooking, my appearance, even the way I laughed. At first, I brushed it off as him being particular, but now I see it for what it was, a systematic attempt to control every aspect of my life. And then there were the lies. The late nights at the office, the mysterious phone calls, the sudden trips out of town. I always had a nagging suspicion that something wasn't right, but I never had the courage to confront him. Until now. I take a deep breath and exit the car, making my way up the path to Naomi's front door. She opens it before I even have a chance to knock, enveloping me in a tight hug. "I'm so glad you're here," she whispers, leading me inside. "I've been worried sick about you." We settle onto her couch, and I pour out my heart, telling her everything that's happened over the past few weeks. The arguments, the accusations, the growing distance between Jasper and me. "I think he's cheating on me," I confess, my voice barely above a whisper. "With his new secretary, Scarlett." Naomi's eyes widen. That little tramp, I knew there was something off about her the moment I met her. I nod, feeling a mix of anger and despair wash over me. I don't know what to do. Naomi, I feel like I'm losing my mind. She takes my hand, her expression fierce. You need to find out the truth, Arya. You deserve to know what's really going on. I bite my lip, hesitating. But how? Jasper's so secretive. He barely lets me near his phone or computer. Naomi leans in, a glint of determination in her eyes. Leave that to me. I have a friend who's a private investigator. He owes me a favor. I feel a flicker of hope ignite in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, I can finally get the answers I need. Over the next few days, Naomi's friend tails Jasper, gathering evidence of his infidelity. When he presents me with the proof, photos of Jasper and Scarlett in compromising positions, recordings of their intimate conversations, I feel like I've been punched in the gut. But beneath the pain, there's a simmering rage. How dare he betray me like this? How dare he make a mockery of our marriage vows? I confront Jasper that night, throwing the evidence in his face. He has the audacity to deny it at first, but when he realizes he's been caught, his demeanor changes. So what if I'm sleeping with her? He sneers, his eyes cold. It's not like you're fulfilling my needs. You're a pathetic excuse for a wife. I see red. Before I know what I'm doing, I'm screaming at him, hurling every insult I can think of. He matches me, word for word, his voice rising until we're both shouting at the top of our lungs. And then, suddenly, he's on me, his hands around my throat, squeezing the air from my lungs. I claw at his fingers, gasping for breath, but he's too strong. Black spots dance in my vision as I feel myself slipping away. The next thing I know, I'm waking up in a hospital bed, my head throbbing and my arm in a cast. The doctors tell me I'm lucky to be alive, that I suffered a concussion and a broken arm from falling down the stairs. But I know the truth. Jasper pushed me. And if it hadn't been for a neighbor hearing the commotion and calling the police, I might not have survived. As I lie there, bruised and broken, I make a decision. I won't let Jasper win. I won't let him destroy me. I'll do whatever it takes to bring him to justice and rebuild my life, even if it means facing my darkest fears and confronting the ugliest parts of myself. The hospital room is cold and sterile, the beeping of machines my only company. I stare at the stark white ceiling, trying to process the events of the past few hours. How could Jasper do this to me? How could he hurt me like this? As if on cue, the door opens and my father Henry walks in. His face is etched with worry, his eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. Arya, my baby girl, he whispers, rushing to my bedside. I came as soon as I heard. Are you okay? I try to smile, but it comes out as more of a grimace. I've been better, Dad, but I'll survive. He takes my hand, his grip firm and reassuring. I know you will, sweetheart. You're the strongest person I know. Tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I don't feel very strong right now. I feel like a fool for not seeing Jasper for who he really is. My father's expression hardens. That man is a monster. I always had a bad feeling about him, but I never imagined he'd go this far. I nod, swallowing the lump in my throat. There's more, Dad. I found out he's been embezzling money from his father's company, and he's been using it to fund his affair with his secretary. Henry's eyes widen. Embezzlement? Affair? Jesus, Arya, you need to get away from him. Press charges. Make him pay for what he's done. I hesitate, fear gripping my heart. But what if he comes after me? What if he tries to hurt me again? My father's jaw clenches. He won't get the chance. I'll make sure of it. I may be retired, but I still have connections on the force. We'll get a restraining order, and I'll personally see to it that he's arrested for assault. Relief washes over me, followed by a sudden wave of nausea. I lurch forward, my hand flying to my mouth. Arya, what's wrong? My father asks, alarmed. I shake my head, trying to steady my breathing. I don't know. I just feel sick all of a sudden. A nurse enters the room, a clipboard in hand. Miss Hawthorne, I have your test results back. I look up, my heart pounding. Test results? What test results? The nurse gives me a sympathetic smile. The pregnancy test, dear. Congratulations. You're going to be a mother. The room spins, and I feel like I might pass out. Pregnant? How can this be happening? I can't bring a child into this mess. I can't let Jasper have any more power over me. My father squeezes my hand, his voice gentle. Arya, listen to me. This baby is a blessing, a chance for a fresh start. You can do this. You can be an amazing mother. I close my eyes, trying to imagine a future where I'm not constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for Jasper to strike. A future where my child is safe and loved and protected. "You're right, Dad," I say, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can do this. I have to do this. For my baby and for myself." I open my eyes, a newfound determination coursing through my veins. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm going to make sure Jasper pays for everything he's done, to me and to his family's company. My father nods, a proud smile on his face. "That's my girl. I'll be with you every step of the way. We'll get through this together." As I lie there, my hand resting on my still flat stomach, I feel a flicker of hope. Maybe this baby is a sign. A reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's still a chance for light, for love, for a future worth fighting for. And fight I will, with every ounce of strength I have left in me, for my child, and for the woman I know I can become. Jasper may have broken my bones, but he'll never break my spirit. Not now, not ever. The divorce papers feel heavy in my hands as I sit across from Jasper and his mother, Evelyn. Her eyes are cold, her lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. "Arya, dear," she says, her voice dripping with false concern. "Are you sure this is what you want? A divorce is so final. Think of the family name. Think of Jasper's reputation." I feel a surge of anger. Jasper's reputation? What about my well-being? What about the fact that he pushed me down the stairs and nearly killed me and our unborn child? Evelyn waves a dismissive hand. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. It was an accident. Jasper would never intentionally hurt you." I laugh, the sound bitter and hollow. "An accident? Is that what he told you? Well, let me tell you the truth, Evelyn. Your son is a monster. He's been cheating on me, embezzling money, and abusing me for years. And I'm done. I'm done being his punching bag and his doormat." Jasper leans forward, his eyes narrowed. "You're making a mistake, Arya. You'll never survive without me. You're nothing without me." I meet his gaze, unflinching. "That's where you're wrong, Jasper. I'm everything without you, and I'm going to make sure you pay for what you've done, to me and to your father's company." Evelyn gasps, her hand flying to her chest. "What are you talking about? Jasper would never steal from his own father." I slide a folder across the table. "I have proof. Bank statements, emails, recordings. He's been embezzling for years, using the money to fund his lavish lifestyle and his affair with his secretary." Jasper's face pales, and for a moment I see a flicker of fear in his eyes. But then it's gone, replaced by cold, hard rage. "You bitch!" he snarls, lunging across the table. "I'll kill you for this." But before he can reach me, my father steps forward, placing himself between us. "Touch her again, and I'll make sure you rot in prison for the rest of your miserable life." Evelyn is sobbing now, her carefully crafted facade crumbling. "Jasper, tell me it's not true. Tell me this is all a misunderstanding." But Jasper says nothing, his jaw clenched tight. I can see the wheels turning in his head, trying to find a way out of this mess. I stand up, my head held high. "It's over, Jasper. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm taking full custody of our child. You'll pay child support, and you'll stay away from us. Forever." I turn to Evelyn, my voice softening. "I know you love your son, Evelyn, but he needs help. He needs to face the consequences of his actions, and if you truly care about him, you'll let him do that." With that, I walk out of the room, my father by my side. I feel a weight lift off my shoulders, a sense of freedom I haven't felt in years. But I know this is just the beginning. Jasper won't go down without a fight. He'll try to weasel his way out of this, to manipulate the system in his favor. But I'm ready. I have the truth on my side, and I have the support of the people who love me. My father, Naomi, now my unborn child. As I step out into the sunlight, I take a deep breath, feeling the warmth on my face. For the first time in a long time, I feel hope. Hope for a better future, a future free from fear and pain. I place a hand on my stomach, a small smile playing at the corners of my lips. "It's just you and me now, little one, but we're going to be okay. We're going to make it through this, and we're going to come out stronger on the other side." And with that, I take my first steps towards my new life, my head held high and my heart full of determination. Jasper may have broken my bones, but he'll never break my spirit. Not now, not ever. The weeks following my confrontation with Jasper and Evelyn are a blur of legal meetings and doctor's appointments. My father, true to his word, has been by my side every step of the way, helping me navigate the complex world of divorce proceedings and criminal investigations. Today, we sit in his study, poring over the evidence he's managed to gather on Jasper's shady dealings. Bank statements, phone records, surveillance photos, it's all there, painting a damning picture of a man consumed by greed and power. I've seen a lot of scumbags in my time on the force, my father says, shaking his head. But Jasper takes the cake. The things he's done, the people he's hurt, it's unforgivable. I nod, my eyes fixed on a particularly incriminating email exchange between Jasper and a known associate of the mob. I just don't understand how he could do this, how he could betray his own family, his own wife, for money and power. My father sighs, leaning back in his chair. Some people are just wired differently, Arya. They don't have a conscience or a sense of right and wrong. They'll do whatever it takes to get what they want, no matter who gets hurt in the process. I feel a chill run down my spine, remembering the cold, calculating look in Jasper's eyes as he lunged at me across the table. Do you think he'll go to prison? For the embezzlement and for what he did to me? My father nods, his jaw set in determination. I'll make damn sure of it. I've already turned over all the evidence to the authorities. They're building a case against him as we speak. Relief washes over me, followed by a sudden wave of fear. But what if he tries to come after me? What if he tries to take our child away? My father leans forward, taking my hand in his. Arya, listen to me. I won't let that happen. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you and my grandchild safe. Even if it means putting myself between you and Jasper. Tears prick at the corners of my eyes, and I squeeze my father's hand. I don't know what I'd do without you, Dad. You've been my rock through all of this. He smiles, his eyes soft with love. That's what fathers are for, sweetheart, to protect their children, no matter what. We sit in silence for a moment, the weight of the past few months hanging heavy in the air. Finally, my father clears his throat, his expression turning serious. There's something else you should know, Arya. Something about Jasper's past. I feel a knot form in the pit of my stomach. What is it? My father takes a deep breath, as if steeling himself for what he's about to say. I did some digging, and it turns out this isn't the first time Jasper's been accused of domestic violence. His ex-girlfriend, a woman named Tara, filed a restraining order against him years ago. She claimed he beat her, threatened to kill her if she ever left him. I feel like I might be sick. Oh my God, why didn't I know about this? Why didn't anyone warn me? My father shakes his head, his expression grim. He had it sealed, buried deep, probably paid off a judge or two to make it go away. But it's all coming out now. The truth always has a way of coming to light. I close my eyes, trying to process this new information. How could I have been so blind? How could I have missed the signs? But even as I berate myself, I feel a new sense of determination taking hold. I won't let Jasper get away with this. I won't let him hurt anyone else the way he hurt me. I open my eyes, meeting my father's gaze with a steely resolve. We have to stop him, Dad. We have to make sure he never lays a hand on another woman again. My father nods, a proud smile playing at the corners of his lips. That's my girl. We'll take him down, Arya, together, and we'll make sure he pays for every last one of his sins. The sound of shattering glass jolts me awake, my heart pounding in my chest. For a moment, I'm disoriented, my mind still foggy with sleep. But then I hear it again, the unmistakable sound of footsteps creeping through my apartment. Fear grips me, cold and paralyzing. I know it's Jasper. I can feel it in my bones. He's come for me, just like I always feared he would. I reach for my phone with shaking hands, dialing 911. But before I can even get a word out, my bedroom door bursts open and there he is. His eyes wild, his face contorted with rage. You stupid bitch, he snarls, stalking towards me. You thought you could ruin me? You thought you could take everything away from me? I scramble out of bed, my legs tangling in the sheets. Jasper, please, don't do this. Think about our child. He laughs, the sound harsh and mocking. Our child? You mean the bastard you're carrying? That thing is no child of mine. Tears stream down my face as I back away from him, my eyes darting around the room for an escape. But he's blocking the only exit, his body coiled with menace. I'm going to make you pay, Arya. I'm going to make you suffer for what you've done to me. He lunges at me, his hands outstretched. I dodge to the side, my instincts taking over. I've spent years being his victim, but not anymore. Not tonight. I grab the lamp from my bedside table, swinging it with all my might. It connects with Jasper's head with a sickening crack, sending him stumbling backwards. I don't waste a second. I run, my bare feet pounding against the hardwood floors. I can hear Jasper behind me, his footsteps heavy and unsteady. I make it to the front door, my fingers fumbling with the lock. But before I can wrench it open, Jasper is on me, his hands wrapping around my throat. "You're not going anywhere," he growls, his breath hot against my face. "You're mine, Arya. You'll always be mine." Black spots dance in my vision as he squeezes tighter, cutting off my air supply. I claw at his hands, desperate for release, but he's too strong, too fueled by rage and hatred. Just as I feel myself slipping away, the sound of sirens pierces the air. Jasper's grip loosens, his head whipping towards the window. "Police! Open up!" He curses under his breath, releasing me. I collapse to the floor, gasping for air. The next few moments are a blur of shouts and splintering wood as the police break down the door. They swarm into the apartment, their guns drawn. "Jasper Hawthorne, you're under arrest for attempted murder and breaking and entering." I watch as they handcuff him, his eyes still blazing with fury. But as they lead him away, I feel a sense of relief wash over me. It's over. He can't hurt me anymore. My father is there, his arms wrapping around me in a tight embrace. "It's okay, Arya. You're safe now. He's never going to touch you again." I nod, my body shaking with sobs. "I thought he was going to kill me, Dad. I thought I was going to die." He strokes my hair, his voice soft and soothing. "But you didn't. You fought back. You survived. And now he's going to pay for everything he's done." As the adrenaline fades, I feel a new emotion taking hold, a fierce, burning anger. Jasper may be in custody, but this isn't over, not by a long shot. I'll see him brought to justice. I'll make sure he spends the rest of his miserable life behind bars, and I'll do it all for our child, the innocent life he so callously dismissed. I may be battered and bruised, but I'm not broken. I'm a survivor, and I'll never let anyone make me feel powerless again. The courtroom is packed, the air thick with tension. I sit at the prosecutor's table, my father and Naomi by my side. Jasper is across the aisle, his face a mask of cold indifference. The trial has been a grueling ordeal, each day bringing new revelations of Jasper's cruelty and deceit. But today, as the final witness takes the stand, I feel a sense of anticipation building in my chest. Scarlett, Jasper's former mistress, looks nervous as she's sworn in. Her eyes dart around the room, avoiding Jasper's icy stare. "Miss Johnson," the prosecutor begins, "can you please tell the court about your relationship with the defendant?" Scarlett takes a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "We were lovers. He told me he was going to leave his wife for me, that we were going to start a new life together." Jasper's lawyer jumps to his feet. "Objection. Relevance?" The judge waves him off. "Overruled. Continue, Miss Johnson." Scarlett nods, her voice growing stronger. "He promised me the world, but it was all a lie. He never had any intention of leaving Arya. He was just using me, like he used everyone else in his life." I feel a pang of sympathy for Scarlett, despite everything. She was just another pawn in Jasper's twisted game. The prosecutor presses on, his voice firm. "And what happened when you confronted him about his lies?" Scarlett's eyes fill with tears. "He hit me. He told me I was nothing, that I meant nothing to him. He said if I ever told anyone about us, he'd kill me." The courtroom erupts in gasps and murmurs. I glance at Jasper, expecting to see anger or defiance, but instead I see something else. Fear. As Scarlett steps down from the stand, the prosecutor calls his final witness. The state calls Evelyn Hawthorne to the stand. I watch in disbelief as Jasper's mother takes the oath, her face a mask of sorrow and regret. "Mrs. Hawthorne," the prosecutor says gently, "I know this must be difficult for you, but can you please tell the court about your son's behavior towards his wife?" Evelyn takes a shuddering breath, her eyes fixed on her hands. "I knew he was hurting her. I saw the bruises, heard the fights, but I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe my son could be capable of such things." She looks up, her gaze locking with mine. "But I was wrong. I was so wrong. And I'm so sorry, Arya. I should have protected you. I should have stopped him." Tears stream down my face as Evelyn's words wash over me. For so long I thought I was alone in this fight. But now I see that I have allies in the most unexpected places. The prosecutor turns to the jury, his voice ringing with conviction. "Ladies and gentlemen, You have heard the evidence, you have heard the testimony of the brave women who survived Jasper Hawthorne's abuse. And now, it's time for justice to be served. The jury deliberates for less than an hour before returning with their verdict, guilty on all counts. I feel a rush of emotion as the judge reads out the sentence, 25 years to life, with no chance of parole. It's over. It's finally over. As the bailiffs lead Jasper away, he turns to me, his eyes burning with hatred. This isn't over, Arya. I'll find a way to make you pay for this. But I just smile, my head held high. No, Jasper, you're the one who's going to pay, for the rest of your miserable life. I walk out of the courtroom, my father and Naomi by my side. The sun is shining, the air crisp and clean. For the first time in years, I feel truly free. I know the road ahead won't be easy. I have a child to raise, a life to rebuild. But I also know that I'm not alone. I have the love and support of my family, my friends, and my own unbreakable spirit. And that's enough. That's more than enough. 5 years. That's how long it's been since I walked out of that courtroom, my head held high and my heart finally free. 5 years of raising my daughter, of building a life on my own terms, 5 years of healing, of learning to trust again, of rediscovering the strength that Jasper tried so hard to steal from me. But now, as I watch Lily play in the park, her laughter ringing out like a bell, I feel a familiar sense of unease creeping up my spine. Because today is the day that Jasper is being released from prison, his sentence cut short by some bureaucratic loophole that I still don't fully understand. I've been dreading this moment for months, ever since I got the call from the prison warden. I knew it was coming, but somehow I still feel unprepared. How do you face the man who nearly destroyed you, who left scars on your body and your soul that will never fully heal? I'm jolted out of my thoughts by a voice calling my name. I turn, my heart dropping into my stomach. It's Jasper, his face leaner and harder than I remember, his eyes still filled with that same cold hatred. Arya, he says, his voice dripping with false charm. It's been a long time. I stand up, my body tense and ready for a fight. What do you want, Jasper? He smiles, the expression not quite reaching his eyes. I want to see my daughter, of course. I have rights, you know. I shake my head, my voice trembling with barely suppressed rage. You lost those rights the moment you laid a hand on me, the moment you tried to kill me and our unborn child. Jasper takes a step forward, his fists clenched at his sides. Don't test me, Arya. I've spent the last 5 years dreaming of this moment, dreaming of the day I'd finally get to see you and Lily again. I stand my ground, my chin lifted in defiance. You'll never see her, Jasper, not as long as I'm alive. He laughs, the sound harsh and grating. You think you can stop me? You think you have any power here? I feel a sudden surge of strength, the same strength that carried me through the darkest days of my marriage, through the long and painful journey of rebuilding my life. I have all the power, Jasper, because I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'm not the same woman you married, the same woman you tried to break. I'm stronger now, stronger than you'll ever be. Jasper's face twists with rage, his hands balling into fists. But before he can take a step, I hear a voice calling out from behind me. Mommy! I turn, my heart swelling with love and pride, as I see Lily running towards me, her face flushed with joy. I scoop her up into my arms, holding her close. Hey, baby girl, I murmur, pressing a kiss to her forehead. I love you so much. I turn back to Jasper, my voice steady and calm. This is my life now, Jasper. This is my family, and you have no place in it. Not now, not ever. For a moment, I see a flicker of something in his eyes. Regret, perhaps, or even a hint of shame. But it's gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by that same cold, hard anger. This isn't over, Arya, he says, his voice low and menacing. You can't keep me from my own flesh and blood. I shake my head, a small smile playing at the corners of my lips. Watch me. And with that, I turn and walk away, Lily still nestled in my arms. I can feel Jasper's eyes boring into my back, but I don't look back. I don't give him the satisfaction. Because I know deep in my bones that I've already won. I've won the battle for my own soul, for my own happiness, and no matter what Jasper does, no matter how hard he tries, he'll never be able to take that away from me. I am a survivor, I am a warrior, and I will never, ever let anyone make me feel powerless again.